What's good, everybody? Welcome back. It's super exciting. We have Mr. Lush One here with us. That is just absolutely wonderful. I know that Mr. Flacko Bale wanted to change how we started it a little bit, and I love his ideas. So I think we should start this off with Mr. Flacko Bale explaining the inception of the show, given he's a co-host, everything. He's a big part of it. So we're gonna take it away, and then we're gonna get to Mr. Lush One.
Word. So salutations, everybody. You are on the EOW TV platform. We are Bridge the Gap. We are your hosts for the day, Holden, Stephan, Roy, and myself, Littyyy Bro Flacko. You know what I mean? Our guest today is Lush One, and Lush. Like this show came about because I was doing my album run and whatnot, and I did Holden got a hold of my music through the engineer for the album, who's also from Montreal, and he just reviewed the album on his own. And then from there, we talked about doing an interview. And after doing the interview, I was just like, yo, this was a really good interview. And I think that it'd be good, to bring other homies from the indie underground hip hop scene to the platform here on EOW TV and do a whole interview series with Holden. You know what I mean? And talking to interesting people like you, like Poison Pen. We just had the Rect on last week. So it's very all the guests have been kind of lining up perfectly. You guys I'm not forcing any dates on you. You guys pick these dates, and it's they're all falling in line with each other, and the stars are lining up, and it's we're telling this story of the beginnings of the modern era of battle rap. You know what I mean? So thank you for coming through. You know what I mean? Thank you for sitting down with us. And yeah, man, Holden's got a great grip on this interviewing thing. So I'm gonna let him take it away.
Yo, so definitely appreciate you coming through. And part of why it's called Bridge the Gap is because, I'm from Montreal, Quebec, right? So in a lot of ways.
I couldn't tell by your accent.
For real? I don't know.
No, I'm just playing. I hella can tell.
That's
I can hella tell. I love it.
Literally, that's honestly, nobody talks about my Montreal accent like that. So it actually caught me off guard for a quick second. But
it's super pronounced, and I love the Montreal. I haven't been to Montreal since I performed at Montreal Jazz Fest in 2013.
That's a big
which
drop
was
right
crazy.
There. That's a big
which was
drop.
super lit. So I wasn't even trying to flex, but I realized how that came across
right away.
No, but
big things.
Take it easy, Lush.
No, it's all good. That's what we want a little bit. We want to hear everything about you. You have no idea how excited I am. So straight up, the show's called Bridge the Gap, partly because I didn't know a lot about even battle rap before Flacko set me up, and then we started talking to Iron Solomon, and I started this journey. So for me, I honestly really didn't know who you were until I started Flacko told me, and I started researching you. So it's this fresh perspective into it. But I swear, there's something that was a little unique from when I posted about your interview. I had 3 to 4 separate people hit me up and be like, bro, you gotta understand that Lush One is a legend, and if you better do your fucking research. You better, and I'm just oh shit, Lush One's a serious
no
name.
Pressure,
just a serious name. But the thing for me, it's not a worry. I just go do my due diligence every time, man. I just go check out the shit. So for me, it's cool. And then we talk about your life, because that's what we do in this show. We just talk about your life. That's what it is. Shout out Young Gray May for the follow. Appreciate that. But it's just exciting to have you here. And so part of that is just we bridge gaps. You're going to tell us a whole bunch of knowledge nuggets based on the story of your life. And with that, I do have a token first question I like to start with, because it's been a fun experience thus far. So if you'll bear with me, it's a little...
Well, hold on real quick. Before we do the first question, can we talk about Montreal real quick?
We can always talk about Montreal.
Okay. So first of all, Portuguese chicken... Let's go.
Yes.
Quit playing. All right.
Yes. I love it. Great start.
I used to do a lot of drugs. I don't do drugs no more. But I was off. You know what Mandy is?
Yes.
Mandy is Molly's cousin, MDA. You feel me? Cousin of Molly. No, no MDMA, MDA. It's very groovy. I was off the Mandy and I could still eat because that Peruvian chicken was smacking so hard. Let's talk about. I've never been. The only other city I would say is Barcelona, Spain. But still, like I've never been to a place with so many. The women are aggressive in Montreal. They were catcalling me. I felt objectified. I felt like a damn piece of meat walking down the block. They was like, I was like, yeah, this is how girls feel, bro. This is like, I damn near wanted to write a letter to the congressman. I know y'all ain't got congressman,
Yo,
but I was like,
what? I can co-sign that because I just finished going to Montreal.
Gnarly, right?
In right like November 2019, right before pandemic, right? And I'm on my honeymoon, right? And like chicks still flirted. And it's just like, yo, you're like high key disrespectful. My wife is right there. You're lucky she can't hear you. She's from Brooklyn. She'll fuck you up. Like, you know what I mean?
They're looking for that three screw, bro. They don't know. Yeah, yo, they're trying to test out the vibes. Like, dude, I mean,
but you know what? Like, wow, props to like Montreal and Canada, period, right? Like, Canada's known for like its women being like.
Canada's got some of the baddest women in the world.
Focus more on Montreal. It's more a Montreal thing. I'm just gonna throw it out there than a Canada thing.
Yeah. The aggression and like, you know, like I know about the history a little bit, but like, you know, I had girls slapping me on the ass. I was like, I don't even got ass like that. This is wild, bro. Every single bar is a strip club. I mean, like, it might just be like some drunk chick on the pole getting wild, but it's a strip club nonetheless. It's like titties first, questions later. But I had an incredible experience. I just really wanted to, before you get into your first question, just say,
no, it's okay. This was great.
Portuguese chicken.
No, but that's when you said that, I was like, that's real. Like, that isn't like some regular. You have to have had that shit to have had that shit. You know, like that felt that.
Yeah.
All right, so I do have that first question done. I'm excited to hear your answer. So basically, it's a bit of a story. When it lands, you'll be like, whatever you feel about it, you'll answer. It'll be cool. But it all starts with my girlfriend, and she's washing the dishes, and she's bumping that Black Eyed Peas song, that I got a feeling, ooh, and she's like vibing, she's dancing, she's doing her thing. And what's really nifty about that is I started thinking about like music and vibes and shit, and how like this song is like exercise music now. It's like fucking doing dishes, chores music now. And I'm like, 10 years ago, I can vividly remember being in the club, jumping up around drunk as fucking circles to that very song, singing it, trying to get girls and whatnot. And it was just a very different vibe, like that song. But that song in time moved along, and I'm like, whoa, music in the way that it relates to time is kind of interesting like that. So it made me realize autumn club hits today. Everything people's vibing to, that shit's just going to be like the chores music of the future and all that stuff people's exercising to, which I thought was super cool. And that relates to like our musical journeys a bit, because songs are kind of like attached to vibes at different points in our life, and they have different meanings and everything.
Right.
And the thing
I feel like a lot of that's triggered by nostalgia. You know, like if you're comfortable enough to do chores or something, it's a song that resonates with a certain emotional capacity from your past. You know what I mean?
I find that's exactly it. But that thinking of the nostalgia factor, it made me think about our own musical journeys. And oftentimes when we talk about it, especially in interview land, it usually starts around puberty life, when we start to get our attachment to music and form our own identities. But if you think about it in terms of vibes and the soundscapes of our lives, it really starts like way earlier than that. And I know in your case it might be a little different than most people, but it really starts with like when you're really young, 5 years old, this real youthful times. And like it's the stuff that your parents or the environment around you was playing, the technologies around, the availability of the different things. Like for me, my dad was playing these Led Zeppelin tapes, and for some reason that was like the apartment music, but Chris de Burgh was like the car music, and the 90s techno was the night music. And all these different things kind of created this like soundscape in my universe that laid this foundation that would later become my musical identity, and you wouldn't even realize it till like way later on in life. So I guess that brings me to you, and if we can go back to being a little 5-year-old Lush One, something in that early era, if you could walk us a little bit through the soundscape of your existence at that time.
So I love that question because I very often, and I love the way you phrase this, like I get interviewed by a lot of hip hop outlets, you feel me, been promoting my new album. So, and pretty much every single one of them will be like, well, how did you first get into hip hop? And that kind of correlates with this question for me, because I got two older brothers. 12 and 14 years older than me. My parents had me, they were like 39, 40, had them in their 20s. They swear to God that I was not an accident. You know what I mean? They swear that I was planned. The jury is still out. You know what I'm saying? We don't have the results yet. I am not sure. Regardless, I'm here. But I had brothers that they were the perfect age difference for me because they were too old to beat me up. You know what I mean? So I didn't we weren't able to fade them like that, but they were close enough in age to put me up on some cool ass shit. And so when I was 4 years old, happened to be right when Ice-T, I'm born in 1981, December of 81. Not to age myself, but I'm born in December of 1981. My brother showed me a record by Ice-T called 6 in the Morning. And I don't know if it was the infectious bass line or the controversial, aggressive content and a bunch of words that I was explicitly told that I wasn't supposed to say. And the combination of that was just intoxicating. And I fell in love with hip hop at that age. I was 4 years old. And from there, the very early ages, it was, evolved from Ice-T to, it was like a very good blend of like classic Seminole, New York hip hop. And since I'm from Los Angeles, California, gangster rap and pimp rap. So everything from, NWA, Eazy-E, Compton's Most Wanted, Too Short to Eric B. and Rakim, the Fat Boys, Beasties, all that kind of shit. You feel me? Like that's what I was raised on from a very small age. But also, classic rock. I had two pet chameleons when I was 5 years old. They were named Jimmy and Bob. So that just shows
like real chameleons.
Chameleons.
Yo, how much do they actually change their colors and shit?
These ones, it was like different shades of green and brown. It wasn't like if you put them on like something blue, they're not going to change blue and shit, but they for sure will like change colors based on like, and also I think it's temperature or some other shit too. But yeah, Jimmy and Bob, I was super into Jimi Hendrix, super into the Beach Boys. I think that was the LA, you know what I mean? Obviously, Barbara Ann, that was a big joint when I'm saying I was like 2 years old and I was on my brother was a drummer. I was on his trap set playing Barbara Ann or just banging and saying ba ba ba. So like that was like very early, and then definitely was essentially raised by MTV. Ever since MTV, the box, VH1 was kind of whack this before BET was even a thing. So yeah,
that's a big answer. So if I understand correctly, you got older brothers, so you cheated the system a bit, and you didn't have to wait for anyone else. You got the hip shit off the jump because they were going through the identity stuff, and so they just kind of jump-started you. But you also had the big age gap situation, which is fascinating. Big age gaps have created a seriously interesting family dynamic. Like my girlfriend's sister's 10 years older than her, so like I've seen what that family dynamic can be like. So it's super interesting in terms of the music acquisition because it's not mad common, but it has a huge impact on you being exposed to things so young, which creates a different path. Like already off the jump, you're already into it. But the fact that you also played the drums like right away at 2 years old means that already there's some part of you that's attached to creation of music off the fucking literal jump. I mean, how much more off the jump can you go at 2? You can barely move before that.
Well, let me break it down. I'm pretty sure when when my mom was pregnant with me, she must have had headphones on her stomach with just the drum loops from Parliament Funkadelic Records playing. I swear to God, something crazy like that. But now to really break it down, I'm fourth generation in the entertainment industry. My great grandfather, Saul Hurock, brought ballet to America from Europe. He was the first person to ever throw integrated concerts at Carnegie Hall with black and white performers, was a huge civil rights activist. Basically, all of my ancestors going back 4 generations were either or both civil rights activists and entertainment industry. My grandfather was a talent manager. He discovered and was one of the original managers for Robin Williams, Carol Burnett, Jonathan Winters. So obviously he was like on the Mork and Mindy set, super tough. My mother is a producer of plays. My father is a filmmaker, writer, director, producer, and he actually used to be a drummer as well. He was the protege of Philly Joe Jones, who was Miles Davis's drummer. My dad used to play drums with John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Cannonball Adderley, all them. You know what I mean? My older brother's a filmmaker, so it's in my DNA code. Next to the palm trees are music notes and director reels and shit. You feel me? So that's that's in my blood.
Like, okay, I mean, like, I knew some of that was coming, but like, Matt, how is it like growing up in that universe? Because you're like, that's not like people had records. That's like people had the musicians in your life.
Yeah.
I don't think people fully like appreciate like what I saw a couple of interviews where you touched on it here and there. So I was hoping you could expand just on what it's like to be at that age and have that kind of environment, and just not like go into like taboo kind of shit, but just the way it like opened your mind to different stuff and what you could take away from those situations, being young in that kind of a world, seeing things that literally nobody else is seeing at that age. Not literally.
I always felt like I was a freak show and was just like had a very unique and different experience, but all I wanted to do was be normal. You know what I mean? And like I became really resentful of the film industry and movies and shit because my dad was always going away and working for months at a time. So I was like, yo, I'm trying to throw a baseball around with my dad. He's not there. My brothers being so much older, it was dope until they bounced to go to college. So I was like, it was pretty much predominantly me and my mother and my grandmother when I was growing up. And this is in LA in the 80s and in LA in the 80s and 90s, early 90s. So this is the height of the crack epidemic. This is when gang culture was just was like at the peak of the gang war between the Bloods and the Crips, and the crack epidemic poisoning the communities, the Iran Contra, and so I'm like kind of growing up in between these two worlds, and it was like a cultural explosion, but really like at the end of the day, I was way more drawn to what was going on in the streets, and that's kind of what raised me. Like where I'm from, West LA is like it's one of the most unique places in the world because you have the juxtaposition of it's like the shadow of the film industry, entertainment industry. There's a lot of really wealthy people, but there's also, it's the city. So there's a bunch of people from all different backgrounds. You have gangs, Mexican gangs, black gangs, racist white gangs. You have, so it's the place where skateboarding culture came to fruition. Think of everything from Menace to Society to American History X to Dogtown and Z-Boys. It all took place within a few miles of where I grew up at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Which is it was a very unique experience. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question also related to like just your involvement or interest in punk, and when was that like something that was off the jump as well, or did that come later on? Because I know you were like kind of linked to the punk scene at one point.
Yeah. I've always, that was just like kind of like I said, like the skateboarding culture was always really there, and Suicidal Tendencies was a big band from right down the way from where I grew up. They're from Venice, California. I'm literally from 2 neighborhoods away from Venice. So that was at an early age. And then, LA punk music like the Circle Jerks, shit like that was always around when I was growing up. You know what I mean? And when I got a little bit older, when I got to high school, like, yeah, I loved that shit. And it was like, my time was spent in between punk rock and hip hop and, the rave scene. It was all huge influences on me. And at the time, like hip hop and the rave scene in LA were like combined. Hip hop shows were at raves. And then there'd be like punk, which was a whole separate scene. But like punk rockers always kind of fucked with hip hop too in LA. So it was like, there was just like, I've always, right, you feel me? Like same thing in New York. I've always really been into just, punk rock is part of the roots of hip hop, period. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, I think that they would probably, because we came first, right? So, right. But like, I think that they, like, because of the way that it grew in New York City, right? I think that New York City is the birthplace of punk, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I could be wrong.
England, low key.
Okay. But yeah. It was. We all know that there was a huge with the Ramones and the
absolutely
shit,
absolutely,
and that shit being so big in New York City. And at the time of hip hop really being past its birth and like having its first few like industry moments and whatnot, you know. And the brotherhood that got formed between the two, I think, kind of like just goes everywhere, you know. Like it's the same thing in Cali. It'll be the same thing anywhere else that has a strong punk scene, because at the time hip hop was such a strong emerging scene as well everywhere else.
Very well said. And I think that really what it boils down to for me and everybody else that was a hip hopper that was into punk rock, or a punk rocker that was into hip hop, was it's just like anti-establishment culture, going against the grain, music that you can play loud that'll piss off your parents and old white people. And that's like what was the whole point of it. And that's what I was drawn to. I was drawn to the rebellious nature. I was drawn to the aesthetic, and it's always been, to this day, a huge influence on me. You know, like Bad Brains and hardcore bands from the East Coast like that are still some of my favorite music in the world. You know,
that's super cool. I mean, I was drawn to hip hop and punk for the same reason. So when I heard you like kind of touch on it, I was looking into it, but I was like, yeah, that's exciting. Because like you don't often hear a lot of people bring up those kind of connections and relate these two scenes at all. But I was always like, nah, they seem like fundamentally driven by very similar principles in like the like anti-establishment ways, like but the unjust system, not like fuck the system, but it's because the system is unjust, therefore you must fuck the system. So like I always loved that part of it, and it was just cool for me. So basically in your case, you're growing up with a whole lot of stuff in your environment, but were you like interested in creating stuff off the jump? Is this like something that was like kind of drilled into you like at an early age, or were you just kind of a consumer of the arts at that point, like when you're really young?
I always could write really well. I was into writing. And I think it was like what made me really want to start rapping. Well, it was a pretty early age. I think it was probably fourth or fifth grade when I saw Kriss Kross, because they were my same age. You know what I mean? Like they were my same age, and I was like, oh, these are kids that are getting down, and they're dope. You feel me? And I love the way they dress. I had like this. I was wearing hella cross colors fits. You should find some old pictures of me. I had the cross colors. You feel me? The Malcolm X hats and all that. That was like wave. You feel me?
Talking my talk. I already know what that is. Another era, you know. I know what it is. I'm very familiar. I mean, I know I definitely was like, I think we were, you know, we're a year apart. So like, you know, a majority of those things that like, oh, the same reason it was hitting for you, it was hitting for me, you know, like young cats dressing like of the time, you know what I mean? Like when no other rapper was wearing none of those Bugs and Tasmanian Devil shirts, they had them on, you know, and that's what young kids were wearing at the time.
That's how I dressed. You feel me?
Yeah, exactly exactly how they were drawn is how we dressed at the time. You know
and they just did it a little bit better than I did, and I was okay. They're wearing it backwards. Let me try to do that. You feel me? Like and all the girls liked it.
I remember being jealous of like the first time that I caught feelings of jealousy was when there was this one cat in like elementary school that he clearly came from a family that like provided that fashion side for him that my parents were not with. You know, my parents were not. My parents were always on that like, nah, like you that costs way too much. Like you don't get that. You know what I mean? So I didn't get to have like he did, like the two different colors of the Jordans of the same sneaker and wearing a different color on each foot. And with the backwards outfit, like I was like, yo, my man is killing the game right now. Like I wish I could show up to elementary school in fourth grade like that. You know what I mean? Like what? Like he was killing the game. And it's because that's the fit at the time. Like everything
that was the uniform.
You know? So like that Malcolm X hat was very, very like important and shit. Like, and was it the regular black one with the stitching, or was it the black one with the metal with the
white with the black with the gray and then like the red and black X on it? I had a few different X hats, and like man, it was crazy. I was like a super cultured white boy. Like I stuck out like crazy doing that shit. You feel me? But I was the first person in elementary school that could go wicked a whack, and like everyone would have me say that all day. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this rapping thing. like girls like it, the dance moves and all that. I was like, there's something to this right
another
here.
recurring theme on the show. The girls
100%.
You know,
that's the main thing.
Like it, where the girls, certain guys is like, yo, wait, where the girl? I mean, I think we all kind of like men, heterosexual men, all kind of like operate in this very like, especially young way, like primitive way of like, whatever is the thing that you happen to do, you do it, but like you want to do it really well because you want to get girls, and you think that this is the way to get girls. You know, like I think we've all seen, like maybe we haven't all seen, but like I seen this video the other day. The title was like, that thing that how you would act when like you would think that that 15-year-old girl you like is watching, and it's like a kid on a bike, and I'm like, I already know what's happening. He's doing all the tricks. He's trying to do all the tricks. He's trying to bounce on the one wheel. He's trying to, because when you're young, you think to yourself like, this is the way to impress a girl. Is let me show her, you know, like my skateboard tricks, my BMX bike tricks. If I play basketball or football, it'd be like, let me score that touchdown. You know, let me do that layup. Let me take that shot. Like, it's for us, it was rapping, you know, like
let me say like, wigga whack one time. You feel me? So and like to play off what you said about the gear, like it was like that too. But for me, you know, there's all these memos going around, all like the home journals and parenting journals in LA at that time of like, this is gang attire. Don't dress like this. No shirts with graffiti writing. No, like you can't wear baggy jeans, this and that. And my parents they're like, no, we're back to school shopping. You getting some butt huggers from the Gap, and that's it. And so that was the catalyst for me starting to be a little criminal, and you know, hustling and selling drugs and boosting and all that shit, because I wanted to dress how I wanted to dress, and if they wasn't finna buy me that, I was finna get it regardless, because you can't stop me from being fly. And that was literally what
I gotta ask a couple more things related to this, because it's really interesting that the fashion matters, right? And it's mattering so young to you. So like, was that always prevalent? Did it always matter that you had to look good?
Hell yeah. Fashion has been ubiquitous from the time I was super young, like, and it was all about like, I wanted all the jerseys. I would love, like, you know, going to baseball games at a young age, Dodgers season tickets. And I loved all the other cities that would come, the away teams, because they all had different hats. So I started trying to collect hats, started trying to collect jerseys. And then like there was like early streetwear brands that I was really into, like Stussy and Fresh Jive and all that when I was like in 4th grade. Yeah, like I was dating girls all through elementary school. I was like one of the first, when girls still had cooties, I was hollering at them. I don't know, I always really liked girls.
Facts. Like, my first little girlfriend was like 2nd grade, you know?
That's
like,
what I'm saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was
period.
Always very important.
I always had females, but then like I literally had girlfriends even younger than that. But really, when I was in 4th grade, was my first official girlfriend. And Stop Asian Hate, my first girlfriend, Catherine Ashikita. Shouts to Catherine if you're watching this. She was Japanese. She was the cutest girl in school. You feel me? And we went to the movies and all that. We caused such, like, our relationship caused such a ripple effect of all the other kids wanting to date each other in the entire class that they needed to have like a whole meeting about it. Like the whole class had to have a conversation about my relationship. People in my Kool-Aid from an early age, macking from an early age like Bun B. But yeah, that's what it was. So for sure, the attire, you know what I mean? Like, and at the time, like, yeah, you feel me? Like Nike Cortezes, Vans, Chuck Taylors. It was always about that. I didn't really start having J's and Barclays till I was a little bit older, but it was right around that time too.
So the next question is, you mentioned Kriss Kross and you kind of glossed over the word dancing. So were you also a dancer back in the day?
I've always been like hella uncoordinated, but still like have no shame whatsoever. So I was out there gigging. Like to this day, I'm still gigging. Like technically, like on a technical scale, I'm trash. You feel me? Like let me just equate. My dance skills are like Nori rapping. You feel me? Like horrible but dope as fuck.
Yes,
that's me dancing.
That's how I feel about my dance moves.
Yeah,
and then I have the wife, right, that encourages all of them. So I'm just like, I'm like, this is the worst scenario for everybody in the world, because it's just like, I'm just like, well, like my wife thinks it's fantastic. So what are you telling me, really? Like, I'm supposed to keep on doing this? Like,
I love dancing. I don't care what it is. I was like, be at the most hood parties, the one white boy, super turning up. You feeling all like the hood girls, like, oh, go white boy, oh, that white boy clean. I'll be at the Mexican functions.
Goes back to
I'll
the
be at
thing.
the Mexican functions, and it's all like paisas. You feel me, doing ranchero style dancing, and I'm getting it. You feel me, like offbeat and all. I don't give a fuck. I'm getting it. And to me, the benchmark of dancing well is having fun and not giving a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, and as long as like you in the zone and like you got your own little pocket, you're gonna be straight. Like I said, I'm the nori rapping of dance moves.
I love it. No, that's an amazing
I
answer.
like that.
Everything about this is amazing. You're a wonderful person to talk to, Mr. Lush One. I definitely,
Yo, great man.
Honestly, and we're not even like
I'm honored.
we haven't even got to puberty yet. We're only like
No,
I haven't even gotten to puberty yet.
This is
not
a
there's
lot.
not a hair on my nutsack yet. Ain't that
Word.
a bitch?
That's crazy though. Alrighty, he's outperforming us in life with ladies, with fashion, like with fucking banging on drums. Too. Like fuck, my guy, your life is fascinating. Like honestly,
Very.
like regardless of like whatever attachment you have for all the accolades to come later on in this story, it's already pretty damn incredible.
What? Let me echo that real quick, because something that I forgot to tell Direct when we had him on was like, I remember when like I started like getting to know more about like, you know, just Direct and you and Ills, right? And definitely like, you know, like any typical hip hop shit or street shit, there's always wild gossip out there. You know what I mean? And there's wild like, yeah, you didn't know this about this person, this about that person and shit. And like I was just always very fascinated by like you guys' background of like, yo, like your dad doing movies, you know, like Direct's dad, you know, being in computers, clearly like being able to give his son a better upbringing than most people might have been able to, you know, give their children back then. You know what I'm saying? Like that to me was very fascinating, because it also wasn't like disingenuous at any point. You know what I mean? Like I didn't get any like and my like detector might not be, as we were laughing about earlier, right? We were laughing about I used to bump some Iggy Azalea songs once upon a time, right? But like apart from that, like joking scenario, like my radar is pretty good. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, bro,
telling people's like genuine ability, you know, genuineness. And like I always got that from like you and Direct and Ills. You know what I mean? Like it was no like like isn't genuine, isn't from the soil, that hasn't been certified clearly on their own where they're from and whatnot. Like I always got those.
I mean,
vibes.
you from the Bronx, of course. You could tell, like, you could break people down very quick. So yeah,
and so I just always was appreciative, though. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, yo, the backgrounds are interesting, you know, and like I always felt like, yo, in a movie scenario, like people would be like really surprised to see like where everybody that like really helped build this shit and this ship, you know, like where they hail from, how, like their backgrounds and origins. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely,
for real.
Absolutely.
It turns out that people fucking love hearing stories about your childhood, and they just love that shit. That's why we keep doing it, because people love it. They love hearing that. Then it's super interesting, and then it always correlates into everything you do later on, because these are basically, it's like a linear journey of the life of Lush One. Like it just all makes sense.
That part. There's definitely not a lack of color. I'll tell you that.
But it's I don't know. I heard a bunch of you talking. It's like regardless of the color, you're like what you've done for people, and the way that like I even heard you say at one point that like, you know, you didn't rely on what your parents did. You made sure to branch out and make sure that you did it on your own and could prove that to yourself, etc. So like while there might be color, it's like the purest form of character that could come from that circumstances. It's almost unlike 99% of other people that would have had that upbringing.
No, well, it's weird. Like, yeah, like I really didn't like most of the, because like I said, I grew up with a diverse amount of people. You know what I mean? Like from all walks of life, just based on, you know, the residential I came up in. But most of like the other Hollywood offspring that I was around, I couldn't stand them. And the thought of being the result of nepotism and getting advantages creatively and being like having more opportunities in glamorous fields as a result of just my DNA was the opposite of appealing to me. And like, you know, like at the end of the day, hip hop don't give a fuck. You feel me? Like, which is the art form that I was drawn to, you know, from graffiti to MCing to DJing and all that. Like at an early age, hip hop don't give a fuck who your parents are. Like, oh, you're Big Pun's son, really? I don't give a fuck. You, no disrespect to Chris River, I'm just saying you got to prove yourself as an individual, or else I'm not trying to hear it. You know what I mean? Oh, your old dirty son, I don't give a fuck. Oh, you know what I mean? Puffy son, I really don't give a fuck. You feel me? No disrespect to any of them as individuals, because like those are three.
And even more so, like it's like those are great examples, right? And you were hitting on like some modern ones, but like back then, like anytime, right, in the culture, it'd be like nobody cared if you were like, oh, I'm Donald Trump's son, or I'm this rich person's son, or that rich person's son. Like hip hop is just like, so, and like this is hip hop. We don't care about that. You got some bars. Like, can you rap? Can you dance? Can you break dance? Can you like DJ? Can you like you get up? Like what's going on here? Like what do you do with those things? And if you don't do with those things, then we don't really care about who you are, type shit. Like that's
100%. And I think it was a combination of that mentality, but really, like, you know, I got arrested for the first time when I was 13, went to juvie when I was 16. Between 16 and 19, I was in 9 different treatment centers. You feel me? Been on my own since I was 18, you know, so moved up to the Bay Area. I was 19 and without support from my family in any regard, financially or otherwise. So I was like, you know, first place I lived was the motherfucking projects on 35th and Suter over there in East Oakland. Like I got kicked out of a halfway house that I was in, and from then it was cracking. And so like based on my own poor life decisions and just the path that my life went on, I didn't have any choice but to make it on my own, really, you know.
But if we, that's fair. I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was commendable, because we are talking about all of this stuff where you're coming from, and I just felt it was worth pointing out that it, you know.
I appreciate you.
But with regards to, before we move on in your story, I did forget about graffitis and the visual arts, and I wanted to ask if you were a drawer, because you mentioned you did appreciate graffiti when you were young. Were you involved in that in any way as well?
Well, that's where I got the one in my name. You feel me? Like I'm not like dope at all, but I would get up. I was a bomber. I was a tag banger. You know what I'm saying? Been from Tagger Crew since I was 16. I've been writing since I was like 12, 13, you know, just drawing on shit, getting up, bombing with streakers and shit. I still got tags on the West Side that are been running for decades. You feel, let me tell you like this, well, if you grew up in LA, and I'm pretty sure Dutch can or Flacko could echo these sentiments for where he's from for sure. But if you grew up in LA in the early to mid 90s and didn't have a hand style, were an irrelevant human being. You had to know how to write, period.
Yeah.
So
I mean? Back then everybody had to.
Okay, let's
like,
pretend
you had to.
I gotta ask one of my questions here, because what's a hand style? We don't talk to a lot of people who are like, I used to bomb. That's not something that comes up a lot in my life. So
a hand style is just like you writing your name in a fly way, graffiti style, like how you write your name is a hand style.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in graffiti, like everybody, technically speaking, has their own font. Like that's kind of part of graffiti. Like, and part of like tagging up is like everybody has their own kind of like font way of like writing letters that is supposed to be distinctive to them and their like own style. So that's why like everybody would always like have a black book and like let everybody get their name in, and everybody could look at everybody else's styles, and like, you know, it's kind of like a beginner's guide to like your neighborhood or your school's tags. And who's what and how they write and how they get up.
Yeah, that's signature. It's your signature.
Like
it's like the same thing. every rapper got their own style, rapping. Every writer got their own style, and that's what a hand style is. So like, yeah, I had a fresh little hand style. I still rock it. I'll still catch a little spot every once in a while. Like I'm technically still from a hood. Like my crew be getting up all the time. I'm fucking 39 years old, so like it's not really what the line I'm pushing, but I'm still, that's always going to be a part of me. And in
So
LA,
cool
it's more
though.
than just like, it was like a cross between graffiti and gangs. Like graffiti crews became gangs, so that's why it's called tag banging. It's like it's different than regular graffiti. I'll tell you like that.
Fair enough.
Which, by the way, though, regular graffiti is kind of like that. Like that's everything. Like I always tell people, like battling is like a part of hip hop to its core, because everything in hip hop, when it was born in hip hop, was born with the purpose of battling each other with it.
Period.
Whether you were b-boying or you were like emceeing or you were DJing, the DJs, it was all battles. Like it was all, jams in the park, and the jams was battles between DJs and who had the bigger sound system and who had the better set and who had this and that, the better MC to rock the crowd, and like the MCs rocking the crowd were essentially battling in the form back then of like who rocked the crowd better, and then
Period.
like the graffiti artists were all like buffing each other and like
Yup.
getting over each other, and like it was about like, nah, I'm gonna get my shit the highest up, and if your shit's there, then well, goodbye to you. So like hip hop and battling kind of goes hand in hand.
100%. And like, yeah, and slashing each other's tags and shit. Like that's what literally, yo, not even on a melodramatic shit in LA, like still, and I'm probably in New York too, that would lead to people getting smoked. It would
Yeah,
literally lead to people
absolutely,
getting smoked. It's
absolutely.
that
Yeah,
serious.
yeah, yeah. I
Mm.
think that one got more serious like than any of the other ones pretty fast. Like
For
early
sure.
on, graffiti got really dangerous really fast, and like yeah, it did lead to deaths like early on. Before like no, that didn't really happen with the DJs and with the rappers
Nah,
until later on in the
right.
culture's life. And b-boys either like b-boys, like if anything, super were not about fighting. Like they were like, what? Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
you
It's
know
like
what? I'm
the
talking shit. Let me not disrespect the b-boys
no,
before
but it's like
somebody
the Beat It
somebody hits
video.
me
You
up
feel
somewhere.
me? We all saw the Beat It video. Come on, that's how they get down. They look like they finished squad, but it's
No,
all
but
love. I,
facts.
I wish it was like that more with the other elements, but shit, look at drill music. That's where that shit went. You
Yeah,
feel me? Rappers
yeah,
really smoking each other
yeah,
nowadays.
yeah. Nah, it's bad. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And tagging always did lead to like people's like lives being like ended over like just a tag. And it's just like, what the fuck? This is
Yeah, them
crazy.
fools. You're dealing with a lot of fools that were doing something that's technically hip hop culture, but they didn't give a fuck about no hip hop. You feel me? Like
Facts.
they like
Facts.
they're
That's
just
also the one element out of the four that I always say like they're the least actual like thing to do with hip hop. Like we just claimed them, and I you know what? I won't bust into my thesis about the elements, but like out of all the elements, the graph writers have always kind of been into like the rock, heavy metal type of
word.
music more so than
Yeah,
they gave a fuck about any hip hop or anything like that. You
word.
know?
And like even the ones that did listen to rap music, like if you tagging in their hood, you feel me? Like they're pushing the agenda of the barrio at that point. It's got nothing to do with no, this is hip hop culture and I'm just getting up for, you know what I mean? Like fuck the
Yeah.
elements, fool. You're disrespecting the neighborhood. So yeah, it got crazy, bro. But yeah, long winded answer to what is a hand style. Don't put
Nah,
me and Flacko together. Like
nah, but this is really good though. Cause here's the thing, for somebody like me, I realized early on, cause I did album reviews for years, and you start getting quick on in the comments, bro, go Google your shit. So you start Googling your shit, and you find out you can't find anything. Like, really, where are you finding this stuff? There are forum board conversations where people argue about what a hand style is for 37, and you're like, this is useless. I don't know anything after reading all of this. So to hear a guy like Lush One, who is so seminally attached to so many different things, laid down from a perspective of being there and living through it, it's just more concrete. it's just like dope. Like we can make a whole clip out of this. Like Lush One breaks down fucking hand styles, and then everyone can just get that little synopsis from you, and that's just amazing. It bridges gaps. It
Dead
accomplishes
homies.
everything that we want to do with
Facts.
this shit. So I appreciate
Facts.
you sharing any of this stuff. Like, I mean, there's like a gajillion people talking about all of your battle rap accolades, but how many people are talking about like I don't know this? I'm curious about all of
Yeah,
it.
and it's funny because battle rap, like, is not even a big part of my story to me. It is in the sense of that's what so many people associate me with, but like that it's like just another footnote in my life as far as I'm concerned. But I've it's and that's not to downplay or battle rap at all because battle rap's done a lot. But to me, it's just a facet of hip hop culture, which has really like been that's my religion. That's what I've lived. That's what I was raised in my entire life is hip hop and just battling before it was even referred to as battle rap. It was just like MC battling, which is just part of doing hip hop, being hip hop, living hip hop. Like so, like now it's like this whole other like adjacent subculture, like organism that feeds off of hip hop and like kind of exists in its own separate ecosystem, which is cool. But to me, that's not what I came up in, and that's not what I care about. To be honest with you.
Honestly, I listened to your album, the fuck your last name album.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Himes.
I knew it was that, which is fucking crazy because it's like hymns, and then it's dope. It's a cool title. I like it a lot. But I listened to it, like really listened. And I was like, yo, this guy's telling me everything he cares about in his life, but using it in a way to give lessons to people and shit. So I was like, nah. If battle rap was mad significant, it probably would have had like this whole track, like but it didn't feel like it. Nah, this was like you bringing. Like, it was so cool. Usually, you don't listen to a person's album like that and walk away with a sense of I know who Lush One is. And I really I really got that sense off of that. You can go
Hell
watch
yeah.
the stream earlier where I was watching if you don't believe me. But like for real, it was such a well constructed project. And I was super the
Thank you.
sample uses are ridiculous. So like to me it was like I was thinking about this too, like as much as I like the battle rap elements, I actually before I even check battles, I go check out the songs of everybody we talk to because that's way more like personally that's my focus. Whereas I think Flacko's involvement in grind time and everything has him maybe more oriented to that part of the history. But like I'm more curious is how good an artist is he. And I'm like, Lush One's ridiculous, holy! And I'm like sharing his
Hey,
shit. I'm like,
And
yo,
but that's why I rock out with you. That's why I fuck with you in the first place. It was that. It was your ability to like listen to the music and actually try to like figure out the things that we're trying to do artistically. You know what I mean? So like,
period.
and we definitely come from like a era of this battle rap shit where it was just like we just were doing the things that you do as a like real hip hop head, which was just like you're supposed to be able to freestyle, you're supposed to be able to cipher with other
Right.
MCs, you're supposed to be able to defend yourself if a battle just pops up and happens, which would happen at every cipher, because somebody would just feel like you're talking to them, and then now you're like in a battle of your like rhymes, but like this isn't what we were like doing this for. We were doing it
100%.
for
That was never
the
the goal. It was just
yeah.
like you said, participating in the culture, earning stripes, paying dues, getting more recognition for the squad to put out more music and all that. And like, look, I told you a little bit about my life. Like I said, bro, like by the time I was 13, I'm already getting hemmed up by LAPD. You know what I'm saying? Like my homies out there getting caught up doing life, you know what I mean? Like getting shot at, all this crazy shit happened to me such a young ass age. Like that's why I would be remiss to rap about rapping in any capacity. Like I feel like that would be depriving myself and the world of my true story and my true essence. Like, like, yeah, I might have had a couple tracks like that when I was a teenager and shit. You feel me? Like, but nah, like that's far from you'll never hear me talking about that shit. And to me, I don't, no disrespect to anybody's art, but I don't enjoy that content from other rappers, and like none of the rappers I enjoy no music. Like you don't hear like you know what I'm saying, like you don't hear Chuck Berry making songs about his guitar. You feel me? Like you don't hear like, you know what I'm saying? Like Jimmy wasn't talking about like I'm a singer and I play the guitar. You feel me? Like no, that shit's whack. You like what do you have to say?
Woo.
Like what's your voice? Like what validates you? What makes your experience unique? And I think I bring it back to like my whole style of my music, the LA Noir audio cinema, is a result of my upbringing in film because I equate music to films. You know what I mean? So it's like, what if this album was a movie, what would it look like? What would the aesthetic be like? Who are the characters? And why would I want to watch it? Do you really want to see a movie about me making the album? Or do you want to see what the fuck, you know what I mean? Like what went on? Like, oh shit, this fool's overdosing. This fool's fucking fucked over the plug and is hiding out in a motel room right now. Like that to me, like shit, I'd rather watch that. I'd rather watch fucking Goodfellas than behind the making of this fucking Adam Levine album. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I hear you. I know there is an audience for the behind the scenes things, but I'm with you actually. But really, like, I don't know what to expect half the time when like you go and listen to somebody's album for the first time, and I figured it was new, it deserved to get listened to. I checked your couple of music videos too because it popped up. They recommended me you. At this point, it's like, okay, let's feed him battle rapper music. I'm like, okay, YouTube, give it to me. And so I clicked it, and I'm like, holy shit! Like it wasn't like it was like wow. It was like you could hear like a level of perfection in what you're creating that like really, honestly, is better than a lot of shit I hear in the underground. I'm talking at all levels of labels and shit. I'm like, holy fuck! Like I could find people to listen to this, and they would be undeniable across the spectrum. I was like,
hell yeah.
It was like, but you got all sorts of styles, whatever. Your music's good. That's really my.
No, I
my
appreciate you.
like,
This is my favorite
huge
shit
for
to
me.
hear.
Like, and I just say that it caught me off guard about how good. Like, you expect good. You don't expect like replayable movie good. Like it was insane. I've listened to it twice today alone. That year.
Oh man, I'm humbled. Thank you so much. Shouts to you know what I'm saying, MTL all day. You feel me? I still got my Delino to Shields throwback. You feel me? Expos, baby. Patrick Watt broke my heart. You feel me? Beat the motherfucking LA Kings in the Stanley Cup. Still got love for him though. Look, I'm gonna tell you like this. That means a lot to me. I truly appreciate your words. Music transcends geographic, socioeconomic, and every other boundary. So to make that connection, that's what I strive for. And I lived a lot of life, and I felt a lot of pain, and I lost a lot, and life done brought me to my knees a lot. I feel like that my voice, you could just hear that, and I feel like that's why, if anything, people can resonate with it, because I went through, not to say that like my music's all depressing and all that shit, because it's not, like, but it's like what I went through a lot of life, and I guess I happen to put words together in the way where it like makes sense to people, but that didn't happen overnight, bro. It didn't, and it's by the grace of God, 100%.
All I know is just to give you some more credit in terms of how interesting you are as a person is, I don't know if you remember who Let Me Know is.
It's my dog, bro.
I figured.
I was gonna say shouts to Lemmy. That's my mantra. That's my folks right there.
But so he sent me this day in the life video he shot with you because he was like, you best watch this shit.
Word.
And so I watched this shit, and I'm like, yo, that is a busy day. And you're like, you guys don't even get it. This is like 1/10 of whatever. And I'm like, I think I kind of have a teensy idea what he's talking about. Life can be mad complicated when you're the guy that's solving problems all day. And I'm like, so on top of everything else, with everything else you're doing in your world, you're a problem solver. And you make things happen. And I mean, to me, when I hear the battle rap part, I think that's why everybody's calling you a legend. Because you are the problem solver that got like everything dealt with. And I thought that was sweet because it was like he's filming you fucking solve problems in real time. Like, oh, the fucking hotel, this guy, and that shit. And you're like just dealing with it. Like,
I'm on hella drugs too. I'm smacked that whole video. That's the crazy thing. Like,
it's like it's
we're partying. There's hella bitch. Like that shit was a wild day. Like, but it was like, hey, that's what it was like, dude. And solving problem, like you know, again, I'll equate that I think so much of things go back to my upbringing and just like at a certain point, like when I've already dealt with being homeless, I've already dealt with the police and all. So it's not a big deal for me to fucking find a hotel room because John the Don missed his flight. You know what I'm saying? Like things like that are super insignificant at a certain point because I really went through real life. I cheated death. You feel me? Like I'm 5 cats because I fucking have 45 lives. Fuck 9. You feel me? So it really wasn't so like doing things like that. And also at the time, I never want to be an advocate for drug use because I'm not, and I'm 13 months clean and sober from all mind altering substances. But at the time, like my arrogance, my character defects, my habitual dishonesty, and my drug use, I feel like was like a cushion for me to do even better at that kind of stuff because I was ambitious to a point of negligence and disregard for my own personal health, safety, and the ramifications for those around me. I didn't care. I was finna do it. I was balls to the wall, finna spend my and your last dollar making this shit happen because I thought something was cool.
That is serious.
It's lit though. Thank you.
No, but like you have to like think about it. The whole world requires people like that. Like it requires it. Like I mean, everything you did. I mean, it came up while D-Rec was talking. He couldn't get through his story without Lush One coming up, and I was like, "Oh
that's
shit,
my dog."
This shit just kind of really does flow into it because Flacco's got this whole like story thing planned out that happened by accident, like he was saying, where it just feels like every interview has lined up in a way where the stories connect. And so I was like, that just makes it perfect now. And then, I don't know, but let's go back to like I have a bit when you're younger because I mean we kind of just pivoted a lot because it was worth it. But
that's
like,
good.
I did want to know like when you started like actually taking music more seriously, I suppose. Like, so you're in high school or whatever, and then I think you saw Kriss Kross, and I think that's as far as we really got with things with regards to
Kriss Kross. I was like still like in 5th grade, like high school.
No, high school comes
that
later, my bad.
Yeah, high school. Like that's when like just like fully immersed in hip hop was, selling drugs, also boosting. You feel me? Like running up in Macy's, grabbing a bunch of Tommy and Polo and Nautica gear, shit like that. You feel me? Not paying for it. It was like the Middle East, Iraq, and Iran. You feel me? So that's
so
that's how I was getting down
too on some like
on some low life shit.
Yeah, word. Okay, that's what's
100% on some low life shit. Yeah, but it wasn't strictly Polo like that. We were going after the Tommy and the Nautica. You feel me? All that shit. Like, DK and Y was super fresh at the time. We were doing all that, and then I was really into streetwear too. Like at the time, it was like Cybertech, Mecca USA, Rego Sport.
Yes.
You feel me?
Yes.
Carl Kanai. It was like Fat Farm had a couple years, but then it got dummy played out. P&B got dummy played out, but they were still like, you know what I mean? Like I was especially really into all that shit. Super tough. You feel me? Pepe Jeans, Mark Buchanan, Maurice Malone, Marquise Richard, all that shit. Super into it. Even a little bit of Gucci, you know what I mean? Shit like that. If we're like, we're able to come
back then it was
already
Dapper Dan had already made it that we was just like,
exactly.
Gucci, like, Louis, MCM, and but those were like pinnacle labels. Like it wasn't like the average Joe was like getting that. Like it was really...
and a lot of that shit was pretty much like considered Euro trash at the time in the 90s. You're seeing a bunch of like Euro trash with the Fendi and the Louis. Like it wasn't super big like for like in the streets at that time, but you know what I mean?
And that logo shit went away in the 80s with Dapper Dan and them. Like after that, it wasn't really cool. Like my background, that wasn't like the wave in the 90s. Like
it wasn't.
Nobody was really.
We had the big Polo
like
logos and the big Polo Sport and Tommy and also being in LA, it was like, like things. There's certain things in LA that will always be in style, and that's Chuck Taylors, Vans, Nike Cortez, 501 jeans, and flannel, button up flannel. You feel me? Like, so that was definitely like a
Dickies too,
uniform.
right? No.
Dickies, absolutely, 1000%. You feel me?
Yeah, that's that because that definitely was always
Khakis were
like,
big at the time
yeah,
for
like I
show.
was always looking at
Bendix.
like I remember like not being into the Cali like classic, a lot of the classic Cali looks, right?
Yeah,
Where it
yeah,
was like I fucked with the music, but I was like, yo, but they dressing weird. Like I'm not rocking that, you know? But
for
that was,
sure.
that was in the 90s New York City, like it would make sense for a teenage me to think like that, right? Because
Of course, of
we're on
course.
our own, I'm on my own swag period, where it was just like I'm not trying to look like nobody in my city. I'm not trying to look like Cali either, you know? But like that definitely was one of those things where like I remember like saying no to Dickies because it had such a like classic Cali, same as like the Cortezes to me, like where it was just like that's that classic Cali look, like some Dickies and Cortezes and like a button down flannel shirt. It was like,
Yeah,
yo,
and like
that's the
and I was from a Mexican hood dating Mexican girls, so of course I had that on. But at the same
yeah.
time, I was super influenced by New York. People used to always say I was like wished I was from New York, tried to dress like New York, listen to New York music. You feel me? Mobb Deep, Wu Tang, M.O.P., Capone Noriega. That's like my DITC. That's like all I would listen to. You feel me? That was has
Yeah.
like I like that better. Of course, I would still be on DJ Quick, Dog Pound, and shit like that. But it was really heavy East Coast influence at the time for me. And, random shit from the South, UGK and Outkast. But really, I was super into New York, always have been hugely inspired. Both my parents are from New York, too. My mom's from the Bronx, my dad's from Uptown. So it's like that's in my DNA. I spent visiting New York for a couple weeks of my life every year during the summertime. I was in New York, and that would be like
So
a
then that
cultural
that that would
explosion for me.
explain why, that's there because you
Big
spent time
time.
traveling. Because if
I
you
was going
were,
to Dr.
because back
J's,
then that
copping
was,
gear.
yeah, back then nobody was, back then traveling, the internet didn't exist, so traveling wasn't like that,
Right.
and you had to travel in order to get to know things, and so like really like everywhere that you would go, things were regional. So like in New
Big time.
Orleans, wasn't nobody in New Orleans really listening to no Mobb Deep.
Right.
They were listening to like Baby Gangsta and this and that
Right.
and the UNLV and the whatever,
Right.
right? But like that's what you would do when you were from somewhere. Like that's why places had their own sounds because everybody was on their region's shit. So for you to be a person that was like, oh, I do my region shit, I listen to my region shit, but I also listen to other shit was like a little bit more rare back then.
And you're 100% right. You feel me? Regionalism was way more like, I think there's a combination. Like we would get certain things from like watching the box. So then, watching the box and MTV. So we would see
What
like,
is the
okay, Crucial
box?
Conflict, Chicago's hella country. You feel me? Like they had like we would see like Twista and Crucial Conflict and shit like that, and we would see like you feel me Scarface in the South and all that. You know what I mean? But me going to New York and like copping Tim's on 182nd and St. Nick's, you feel me, when I'm like still in high school and shit, like having those experiences, like that was a highly impactful.
Mm-hmm.
My mom took me to Staten Island to the Woo Wear store when it first opened up in like 97. So you know what I
What?
mean? Like, yeah,
That's cool.
he's super tight. So like
Yeah.
that was the first time. Like it wasn't until like a couple
That's
months
cool.
ago
Wait,
that
so hold on. Your mom was the one, like, were both your parents cool with you, like, for listening to hip hop, or was it like dad, like you said, he was really busy with work, and your mom really was just, accepting?
they couldn't stop it at a certain point. But yeah, they were cool with it. You feel me? They were like they understood, like as crazy as it seemed to them and stuff. Once like I pushed the culture on them because everything that they were being, this is the early 90s. They're being subjected to Tipper Gore, C. Dolores Tucker, steamrolling fucking rap albums,
Mm-hmm.
parental advisory stickers, like, hip hop is destroying the community and all that shit. You feel me? Like it's
Yeah.
crazy because
So
so
you're
my
the
dad is a
kid
jazz
that was
musician,
being
like I said.
debated. Like you're the kid that was being talked
Yeah.
about during those debates in like a more literal sense because of your age.
100%. I was like the kid in CB4 whose fucking dad was his dad was running for senator, and he goes in fucking rapping dropping N-bombs, rapping the words of the songs in his dad's office, and he chooses to turn it a campaign against hip hop. People always used to say that kid was me, which I thought was fucking hilarious. So no, my dad was a jazz musician. His step grandfather was a classical composer and conductor. So he would always tell my dad how jazz isn't real music. Classical is real music. All you guys are making noise, all that shit y'all doing, it's not real music. Listen to motherfucking Tchaikovsky or whatever. That's real music, right? And then my dad would wound up saying to me, like, oh, drum machines, you feel me? Like that shit, you're stealing other people's music, sampling, that shit's not music, you feel me? Like it's the same fucking conversation. He wasn't even aware of the irony. At this point, they get it, you feel me? My mom loves Jay-Z and Kanye West, you feel me? And unfortunately, is a huge fan of Hamilton because, get this, it's a great quote by my dad. Hamilton is incredible because it's like they took hip hop and mixed it with music, which I think is fucking hilarious. But like, no, but they're hip now. But yeah, at the time, like I was always playing that in my, I'd be with my mom. She's driving me to practice or this or that. And I got Woo in the car, you feel me? ODB, method and all that. And so she was like, and I don't know, I told her there's a store, it's called Woo Wear. We were in New York. She wound up mobbing me all the way. We actually went from Manhattan across through Brooklyn to across the Verrazano. Like we didn't take the ferry because the hood in Staten Island is on the North Shore. South Shore is all like the racist Guidos and the Italian motherfuckers, right? That's like, so that whole side of town where Stapleton is at and Park Hill is at, where that's on the other side. So you have to go, it's easier to get there driving across the Verrazano, basically. So we did that. It was crazy getting to go to the Woo Wear store, yeah, like I always was heavily influenced by that. But at the time, like when I'm in high school and I started rapping and I'm battling kids and all that shit. And it's funny because the dude that really encouraged me to start rapping, because I kind of started a rumor in high school that I could rap before I really could. I was writing and shit, but I never really rapped out loud. So like everyone, and there was kids that rapped in my school that were dope. Some of them were gangbangers, and some of them were like real, like on some like underground hip hop, like 90s shit. There's some dope MCs in my high school, right? And there's this one dude, right? He was a basketball star. His name was Cash Warren. And Cash, this dude's the GOAT, because what did he wind up doing when he grew up? He wound up getting married to and impregnating and having kids with Jessica Alba. You feel me? So he, like, you know what I mean? Come on, bro. Come on. I know Dutch ain't even into the Latinas like that, but Jessica motherfucking Alba, bro.
No. Jessica Alba was fine.
Come on now, bro.
Fuck back then.
You feel me? That's a day pass. Any relationship, that's a day pass. Jessica Alba. So this dude wound up, and he's still with Jessica Alba. But at the time, Cash found out that I rapped, and he was like encouraging, like, "Yo, Nick, let me hear something, Nicky. Let me hear something." And put me on blast. And it was like, I was a freshman in high school. This dude's like, a senior, one of the most popular kids in the school. So I was like, "Fuck it," you feel me? I get it on the mic, and then I start spit. You feel me? Like he brought it out of me. Like, because I just wanted to impress him and all the girls he had around, and that from then on it was cracking. And but my ambitions, because my life got so crazy, like I said, I wound up getting locked up not too long after that, in and out of treatment centers, expelled from 2 different schools. Like, my family don't know what the hell to do with me. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't really have ambitions of surviving or living a long life. Thought for sure I was gonna die young. Didn't care how. Was just flying off the handle every day, doing the most I possibly could. And my only ambition was like, yo, I want to be like, make rap songs that people think are dope. I'm gonna rap on a stage and people are gonna think that's dope. You feel me? Like, and that's all I cared about. Period. And then that snowballed to me, when I moved to the Bay Area in 2001. I was 19 years old, and started rapping more and more and more. Started recording myself, putting out little 4-track tapes, selling them on the block in front of the record store and all that shit, and then linking up with other little rappers, forming crews, and then it just all blew up from there.
Word.
That's it.
There's a lot that happened after it blew up, though. That
Yeah,
Word.
hella much.
But
Hella much.
yeah. So
But it's all been like everything has been a victory lap for me. This has all been icing on the cake because I was the kid that thought I wasn't finna make it past 20 because I was so reckless and everybody thought I was just a menace and didn't really have a place anywhere. So I was like, and then like the fact that like, oh wow, people do think I'm dope at rapping. They are bumping my music. Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, blah, 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 blah. Next thing I know, I got a fucking platinum plaque in France, but I didn't like shit. Any of that. I could have died 15 years before that. You know what I mean? Like all this shit that's happening now, I got people in motherfucking Montreal slapping my music that think that shit is fire. And I'm on a podcast getting interviewed with a bunch of people like from all over, and EO Dub, this amazing institution in hip hop that I look up to so much, like acknowledging me, like, whoa, like I've already, this is the sprinkles on top of the icing on top of the cake. You feel me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it was not supposed to happen.
I feel the same exact way. Big facts, B. Like it was not supposed to be. It was not so. I'm super happy with everything. That's why, like, when I see some of our peers and they're like unhappy, like, and I feel like they like achieved maybe more than me.
Right.
I'm just like, man, that's unfortunate, bro. Like, you should really appreciate what you got to do, because like there's a lot of people out here that they've done stuff and they've never earned a dollar, a dirty dime from like doing anything with this. So like, for the fact that you even make $1 or make a dime or have one fan, have 100 fans, like you should be like super appreciative. Like I know I am, and I know that I've always gotten that same sentiment from you. You know what I mean? Like you're really happy.
Yeah.
Like I remember when we were story time. I remember when we were in the middle of, I'm gonna fast forward into Lush's story a little bit, right? When we were on stage at
Rock the Bells,
New York City stop. And that year they had like 4 different stages going. And it was like a main stage that was, who was it that they had? Nas.
I remember Ghost and Raekwon, Immortal Technique.
I know because I think Immortal Technique had the other stage, right? He had the like indie stage, and then
Mobb Deep. It was Mobb Deep.
Wu-Tang had the Wu-Tang stage, and then we were in between their stage with like the Grind Time stage, with like the little Grind Time stage and shit.
Yeah.
But like there was like a lot of love in the air for what we were doing, at the time. And like I remember when we were there, Lush was like just really happy. Like a lot of people at that time, like Grind Time was like a little, maybe like not. We were having a lot of hiccups, I think, as a whole company and family. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
And
it was up right then.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a wreck back then. But like regardless of that, and regardless of all the drama that was happening everywhere, like you were really genuinely happy. Like you were happy to be there. You were happy doing what you were doing. Like you were just genuinely happy. And like I remember like enjoying that and gravitating to that because of that. Like to me, I'm a little bit more like happy as well, like happy go lucky with this shit. Like, I'm really like happy that I get to do this shit. I'm happy to fucking like to ever be able to get rocked, and people to listen and hear. So it's like, what? We're on stage.
No, I'm rapping on stage with PH and Poison Pen. Fucking Ghostface is right over there, and fucking Havoc and Prodigy, and like, what the fuck? This is the tightest. Yeah, it was
tight as fuck.
Yeah,
you
feel me? I do. Like to me, it's like incredible just to hear that. Like I'm in a position where like nothing is like that's really gone down so much. So like hearing just that experience, it's like, damn, that's so cool. Like to me, that's as cool as like that's the thing for me is I talk to everybody here, and it's like everybody's stories are just as cool to me. Like everybody's got
Word.
these really cool stories, and that's where like I'm not really worried. I mean, you're Lush One, you're totally a legend. Your accolades are ridiculous, but at the end of the day, you're also a dude who just is a person and does person things, and that's also cool. And therefore, it's like everybody's
Except for
stories.
I don't poo. I never have.
Listen, listen. I don't know how to.
Look,
I've
no,
never
but you
been
know what?
around you. I can't say yes or no. I've.
I'm gonna tell you this. I want to be because what you said is right, bro. I'm one of us, and who us is the genuine people that just have a passion that always wanted to be able to live their dreams, and
Mm,
even when it's scary as fuck, that took that jump off the fucking ledge and didn't know if his wings were gonna fucking sprout or not, and hit a bunch of fucking rocks on the way down, and then right before I splat on the bottom, boom, my wings just appeared and I fucking ascended. So I'm one of us, bro. So I want to be a voice for everybody that
I
thinks
love
that
that
kind of
though.
shit is cool.
So like I saw this interview clip that I thought was mad nifty, and I think it might be cool to just touch on it because some parts of your life are like you just witness shit that again is hard to Google. So then like you were 13, 14, taking bus rides over to witness some shows or another and consume this shit as some one white guy in the room watching a bunch of culture, and that led up to you feeling like you had a voice that represented a group of people that needed to be represented. And
Word.
everything about that was super interesting. And I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about. And it never ever, people don't expand on that kind of shit. So I was hoping you could just expand on that, like what that was, like what you were doing, what was happening and bubbling in the air that led to you feeling like you needed to have that voice.
Well, so at the time, like LA is one of the most culturally diverse cities in the world, but it still is to an extent, and definitely back then was actually very segregated. Like way more so than a lot of big cities are. Like New York is not as set. You see all different. Blacks and Puerto Ricans and Dominicans are all together always. You'll see different races all sprinkled in the mix, Eastern Europeans. Now, like LA is very segregated. Like the west side of town, predominantly white. East side of town, predominantly Latino. South Central, predominantly black, and like that's just the base. And to just further compound that on that, and expand on that concept, like it's separated by specific, very idiosyncratic, specific ethnicities. So where like we have Little Armenia, Japantown, Philippine town, you know what I mean? Like every single countries you've never even heard of. We Little Tehran, like every single area country has like a geographic representation of the soil of LA, and they're all separated to an extent. It's kind of like creepy when you think about it. Like it's inclusive but separate. So you really wouldn't see that many white people, especially at that time. This is like there's the height of racial tension. This is right on the heels of the Rodney King riots, 1992. You know what I mean? Like, and all that shit was going on. Like, white people were getting fucking like if a white person got caught slipping in South Central, they'd get the shit kicked out of them. Just like before that, when black people would get caught in white neighborhoods, racist white people were mobbing on them. That's what led to the formation of the Black Panther Party and Bloods and Crips and all that shit to begin with. There never would have been gangs if it wasn't for racist white people. 100%. That was literally a response to corrupt police, racist white people. That's what that was. And the Black Panthers started in Oakland and then came down to LA shortly after. And then when they got somewhat disenfranchised for a while, what birthed from them were Crips and Bloods. And same thing in the Latino communities with the car clubs and the Pachucos turning into fools that were protecting their neighborhood, and gangbangers out there, Barrio, Cholos. So it was the same thing. So like you didn't really see white people going over into them sections, but I was in love with hip hop, and they didn't really have hip hop in the West Side at the time like that. There was punk rock and shit, but there was no real like the hip hop that I was influenced by. I would have to take a few buses, go to Lemert and 43rd over there, down Crenshaw. You feel me? South Central LA. Which is, that's a Crip neighborhood for your information, by the way. But over there, like I would go over there to this place called Project Blowed and um, watch these dudes emceeing and watch the culture growing before my eyes. Some of the dopest rappers in the entire world, freestyling, battling, and all that. There was no white people around whatsoever. And at first, I got a couple looks, but then, like it was on some show and proof shit. And I think the reason why people weren't resistant to me, and I never really got pressed like that, like a couple times, but nothing too. They'll press anybody that's not from there going over there trying to be a part of hip hop. Like, who are you? What you doing? Where are you from? But like, I didn't really like, it wasn't like, hey, yo, get the fuck out of here, white boy. It wasn't, I never got that energy because I wasn't walking around with my chest out trying to look hard, and I wasn't afraid. And so much of the root of racism and prejudice and all that is based on fear of the unknown, of fear of what you don't understand. And I wasn't afraid. I just wasn't afraid. I'd been around Black folks my whole life. I'd been around Latinos my whole life. And even when I'm completely outnumbered, it wasn't like no thing to me. It was like, these are all hip hoppers. We're all coming together. We're like one nation at that point. And that's what it felt like. And yeah, I felt like I needed to be a voice for everybody else that wanted to be a part of this thing that didn't really, that wasn't really, my whole neighborhood never really had a voice. There was never really, LA has so many rappers from all the different sections of it, but there's barely any fools from the West Side. And, there's a couple, like Evidence grew up near me. The Alchemist grew up near me. You know what I mean? People Under the Stairs. And now, like Blueface, there's other like gangster rappers that popped off that grew up in my same area and shit. But like there really wasn't that many voices at all that were talking about the lifestyle of growing up in West LA, tag banging, all that shit. So I wanted to be the voice for that and to put that culture on blast. So that's kind of what that's like the angle I always took in my music to this day.
That's it's so interesting to hear all that, because honestly I never would have thought about anything like the segregation of it. I knew LA was not what the movies taught me, and it's not that, but like I don't really know what it looks like. I've looked at like Google Maps, and that's as far as it goes,
palm trees with graffiti on the side of them, you feel me?
I mean, sure. I'm picturing that now, but it's more the way you describe the separation of it is really interesting to me, because Montreal is a lot more like New York. It's like everything is kind of built around downtown, and then it just kind of extends out from there is what it feels like. So it's more like you see everybody everywhere, no matter where you're at in the city. So just that idea of segregation like that is huge. I didn't know it was like that.
It was designed that way. There, the concepts of redlining, like they like really, there were laws, and it wasn't until after World War II that Black and Latino people weren't even allowed to own land in Los Angeles past certain lines. And the only reason they did it, like they allowed Latinos to move into 4 different neighborhoods in West LA. Pico and 17th Street in Santa Monica, Pico and Sawtelle, near where I grew up in West LA, the Mar Vista Gardens projects area in Culver City, and Lincoln and Rose in Venice. And they called those areas quote unquote designated servant zones, because like that's where the Latino community that were wind up, working in positions like being gardeners, being mechanics, cleaning the white people's houses and shit. That's why they allowed people to even integrate in those areas. It's a fucked up fact, but that's some shit people need to know.
I agree. No, it's really glad that we're talking about this kind of stuff. Like I went on this journey to try to learn more about the systemic racism issues and the history behind it, and I think that goes under the whole redlining tactics generalized idea of where they would.
Period. Like I got a line in my song Everwest 310 where I talk about all this shit, the gentrification of West LA and all that. Put out the record in 2010 2010 actually, the single, and then the album dropped Gold Bricks in the Wall in 2011. And I have a line where I talk about that exact concept. I said, in a hood classified as designated servant zone before they gentrified it for broke actors when their work was slow, because that's what fucking happened. You feel me? Like, it wanted, like, so they created this area as a designated servant zone, and then what wound up happening, because Latino people are beautiful, prosperous people, they've made amazing communities in these areas with a lot of culture and a lot of innovation and beautiful areas, and they made it a lot nicer. And then what wound up happening, you got fucking, there's more of a demand to move into those places because Hollywood, Beverly Hills, and all that shit's too expensive. So what winds up happening, all, like, you know, all these aspiring actors and other white folks start moving into these hoods and forcing these Latino communities out, down to Inglewood, out to the east side.
It starts with all that, with all the, you know, what's not far from Hollywood, but like really nice is like X, Y, and Z neighborhood. And it's like, yeah, that's like our neighborhood. That's where we live so that we can get to the cities to be able to do the jobs that you need doing so that the city can thrive. Like, you know, that's why, like, I got offended when, like, the pandemic hits and, like, people are leaving and, like, this, like, doofus writer makes, like, an article, like, New York City is dead. Like, what? Wait.
No, it's coming back to life, actually.
What are you talking? Yeah, like, if anything, like, this is, like, the greatest time ever in New York City. Like, you guys are gone, and, like, all the, like, actual natives are, like, happy and, like, we're fine. Like, the city's gonna be fine. Like,
and what do you know? New York City hip hop winds up becoming the most poppin' it's been in over a decade. As a real, isn't that a crazy coincidence, right?
Like, I didn't even. Yo, that's big. That's a big time knowledge nugget. So you're saying all the people that were like not okay. So the city shuts down and kind of naturalizes again because a lot of people decide to leave and go to other places, and it kind of lets the city do its thing in a way that it hasn't been able to do because of external influences. Yo, that's like one of those things that everybody in their own cities needs to now go and look and, you know, pay attention to, because that could be huge for a lot of people's cities, just to watch that trend. Pay attention.
Yeah, that's why I went so hard with the Littyyy Bros that year.
And you killed it. That shit's amazing.
Like, yo, like my city's open. Like, what? Like, we gonna party in Central Park, bro. Like, where the tourists be at. You know what I mean? Like, we gonna pop champagne on the corner of Cat's Delicatessen. Like, we gonna mob down Madison Avenue. Like, what? Like, who's gonna tell us what? Like, the cops is busy. And then the cops was getting offended about, like, us telling them to stop killing us. And they were like, well, how about we stop doing our job? And we were like, okay.
Cool.
Fire. Like, sounds good to us. Like,
not like,
word, we'll be all right. Like, there's, and there was no, like, they were so upset and bothered by the fact that, like, there was no real crime like that. They started having to report bullshit crime and, like, respect for every little thing, you know, to, like, be like, oh, there was a murder over here though. And it's like, yeah, that's not even like related to, like, anything. It's just like random murders that happen everywhere at all times. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, the city knows that, like, the cops are gone and, like, now we're going murder crazy. Like, no, that's not happening. So, like, what do you know, like, and yeah,
New York feels like New York again, and it didn't for a long time. And when I go to New York now, and I low-key feel like borderline a little bit threatened walking down through the streets of Brooklyn, that warms my heart. Like, I want that. I shouldn't feel so safe walking through fucking East New York. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't feel safe walking through Flatbush like that. You know what I mean? Like, but now it's going back to, and to me, that's a sign of the people reclaiming their city, which is the way it's supposed to be, you know?
But and the same thing for, like, out there, you know, like, those
same thing in LA.
They belong to those actors, you know, like they belong to those people, you know. They
and
made
like it was so, like, in LA, it got so deep. What wound up happening is because the real estate companies want to keep that real estate as appealing as possible. Like, because we're the west side of town, we're close to the beach. You feel me? And like, there are these people that are living in rent controlled places that they could sell for millions of dollars. You know what I mean? That they're not fucking, those families, you know, someone's abuelita lives there. They're not fucking finna move. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to be in the family forever. And the real estate companies would do their thing to keep the crime reports of the crime down. So like there's still shit going down, but it's not even making the news and affecting the crime rates because they want to make sure that they're still able to have these immaculate statistics and get the most bang for their buck when they're reselling the properties. So it's like LA was grimy as far as like the whole gentrification situation, and it's definitely something that's been you know, I touch on it on the new album to an extent as well. Like I've made several records touching on that, and it's just like an undertone of because you know I grew up in LA, which is still there, but you got to look under a microscope to find it. Like the West LA that I grew up in is very, very different. Like, you know what I mean? Like you would see there'd be like a nice ass block, but then you see like an essay on the corner, like casting an authoritative stare down the avenue posted outside of a lowrider. And like that whole element, like now you got to really look for it to even know that still exists on my side of town. But that's the culture, that's the people, and that needs to still, people need to realize that there's nothing to be afraid of. It's not like these people, these aren't just criminals. These are the people adding flavor and culture and vibrancy to the neighborhood to even make it what it is.
That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah, that was big too. All of that was big. Yo, you're dropping big time knowledge nuggets on us for real. Yo, is it alright with you if I just take a quick pee break and then Flacko can hold it down for a quick second and I'll be back.
No, you're good, man.
Fresh. Thank you so much.
You're good.
I don't know what it feels like because I've never peed before.
But... So around that time, what was it that was like when you were what era are we talking about now? Like you're in high school, so like what is it that you was rocking to? Like what were you listening to? Like what was like influencing the fuck out of you?
Dude, like really, like, you know, like I said, like that real I loved really gutter New York rap music more than anything. Like it was a combination of like it was a combination of like the gangster rap of the West, but nothing really resonated more with me than like the most gutterest New York shit that I could possibly find. And that was like, to this day, like that aesthetic is in my music. And even when I've explored other styles and I've gone all different directions, you know, because I like to be creative and be outside the box, like nothing matches my aesthetic as an artist more than that. You know what I mean? And like, if you listen to my music, what I'll talk about is very like specific things to LA, the slang that I'm using, the way that I'm presenting it, but it's in the context of, you know, grimy New York hip hop. That's always people. A lot of the people that weren't familiar with me that interviewed me, they were, first of all, hella surprised I was white, but really surprised that I wasn't from New York hearing my music. And I was like, do you hear what I'm saying? Like I pronounce my R's. You know what I mean? I'm not I don't say son, you feel me? Like I pronounce my R's. I'm very like, I bang the section super tough and like speak about certain things like, you know, like home invasion, flocking, breaking into cars, bipping, like things that aren't necessarily like big problems in New York, but are epidemics in the streets of LA. Like that's the type of shit I rap about. But so yeah, like but that New York has always been a huge influence on me. And then, you know, I've had phases where like I wasn't even jacking hip hop to that extent. Like I was, you feel me? Like I went through a huge phase later in high school when I was fucking gothic bitches and I was like listening to hella 9 Inch Nails and industrial music and super heavy on the punk rock and like, dude, so I've gone all over the place. You know what I mean? Like I was like, had a whole phase where I'm just like posted up with the Rastas, like listening to roots reggae, you feel me, Peter Tosh and all that all day long, and the Abyssinians, and you feel me, like all that kind of shit. So it's like I was very, very eclectic human being from the Jump Street. Lee Scratch Perry, all that shit.
I can empathize. I was always
you the same.
all over the
That's
place.
why
I was
birds of a
all over the
feather.
place with my taste. Like I was always like I would go through phases, you know. I would also go through phases with like I would like do it like with like fashion and with like music at the same time almost, you know? Like I'd be like, yo, this year I'm rocking X, Y, and Z all the time, you know? And like that's like this, or you know, like I'm going preppy this whole year.
Word.
Or like I'm going like Greece, and I'm just be rocking tight t-shirts with a pack of cigarettes rolled into my teeth. You know what I mean? And just like this is my look for this whole summer and shit. And then like that like kind of leads into the rest of the year until the next summer comes around. And like with that would be like these tastes, like swings in musical tastes, you know? Where it's just like, yo, now I'm just like listening to like a lot of fucking Maroon 5 and shit. Like
exactly. No, I would be that shit would it's always the fashion's always been just a prevailing influence in my life. And I don't know, I feel like it's just another way, just like writing on walls, just like using your voice to express shit, the way you look, the way, you know, your style. That's like, it's just whatever way I could possibly make myself unique and stand out in the you know, NBA 2K created player version of myself in real life. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put tattoos all over my body. I'm gonna put piercings. You feel, oh, there's more ways for me to. I could have diamonds attached to me, like, you know what I mean. Like I'm always was into doing shit like that, and fashion is everything. Really, clothes or everything. I don't even. It's not even about, because I feel like fashion like connotates like an industry behind it. For me, it's just like being fly. You know what I mean?
So
yeah,
I always
More than
differentiate it
fashion.
like style. Style is more
Style. There you go.
yeah.
There you go.
yeah.
Skis.
So I
It's your personal style too.
that's it.
Exactly.
I love that.
Individuality.
I like how like you're like you really like created a brand out of like yourself, like to the
Word. Thank you.
max, like every part of your character and soul. So like, yo, I have a question, right? You're in the Bay Area, and you're getting into rapping. And what is a hyphy movement exactly? I don't really understand.
Hyphy movement was lit. It was like some of the most fun I've ever had in my life to this day. The hyphy movement, like, so the Bay Area, I feel like, as much as, you know, I'm born and raised in LA, but the Bay Area is where I've learned the most of anywhere that I've ever been. It's where I got, like, just like Pac said, you feel me? I got my game from Oakland. I got my game. And I feel like my personality and just like the freedom that I emanated in my whole vibe and just down to earth nature of who I was always more in tune with the Bay Area. And although like me being an entrepreneuring spirit and just a little bit more aggressive and quick on my feet and quick thinker, because I'm from a big city, you feel me? I'm from LA. So I was able to cross-reference those two styles in that game between LA and the Bay, and it made me thrive in both environments, like bringing my LA energy to the Bay and bringing my Bay vibes,
Yeah, you know
my
what?
LA hustle to the Bay and my Bay energy to LA, and that made me
I can
like
tell you from the outside looking in, I definitely got that. Like, I definitely saw that. Like, I'm always like, I remember seeing those battles back then, like them early days, and well, not even the early days. Like once things were in full swing, once I was participating, right? Because like
Word.
Prime Time was around for like a couple seasons before I even got there. You know what I mean? Like when I got there, it was like things were already starting to shift, like the whole standings thing and like the top tiers and the, like the promises of getting paid after X amount of like battles, like those things were kind of going out the window, and like new thing was like happening, and like you guys, when y'all had all them fucking graphics above your heads, you know, and like you seeing you and damn, yo, I fucking
Plex.
like feel like what's it? I'm sorry?
Plex.
Yeah, you and Plex, seeing you and Plex together, I'd be like, yo, they are so like Bay. Like that's like what like I felt like you guys were like the physical representation of the Bay in my mind when I saw y'all. Like, but to find out that you were from LA was just like, you know, but like that connection, and for you to be able to make that connection, I think is what like probably was like main reason that the whole Fresh Coast movement and grind time probably was so successful. You know what I mean?
Because absolutely. And so and just to answer the original question, like the hyphy movement pretty much was, you know, the style of the whole lifestyle of the Bay Area from the years like 2003 to 2008. And that's, you know, when I lived in the Bay from 2001 to 2013. So I was back and forth all the time, but I lived in the Bay. Oakland like really like put me up on a lot of game. And so just the style of music, the style of fashion, the language, just the game, the whole entire lifestyle, the way fools were getting money in the streets, the independent grind, like the flamboyant, like, you feel me, energy and dance moves, and like really like expressive speech that's outside the box. And it was kind of like a coded language you had to break down, and if you weren't hip, you had no, we could be having full-blown coherent conversations right in front of you, and you'd have no idea what the fuck we're talking about. You feel me? Like oh, them rollers just live by the crib. Like, what do you just say? You feel me? Like, you wouldn't even know what the fuck we talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Very much so. I know that. Like, I know that Holden might not be familiar, but like that's something that I always looked at with a lot of respect. The Bay Area just was like, it reminds me of like New York City attitude when it comes to like, yo, we can't be saying the same shit anybody else is saying.
Word.
Like, we gotta be so original with our slang that like everybody's just like, word, what's that you said, you know, type of shit. Like, nothing, like you couldn't, like, you were always trying to rename things and like and like just make something completely original out of the thing that is your everyday verbiage, because you wanted to have like an original slang. And I see that in the Bay Area heavy, from all the rappers to like,
and we would take words that were already slang and add other letters to them to make them even more, you feel me, like I got my bunters on because my window's on nutso, like my eyes look hella crazy because I'm on X pills right now, so I have my big sunglasses on. That's like what that meant. But you wouldn't know what the fuck that meant. It was, our language was so crazy, and me always being just a big fan of creative speech was super drawn to it. And you know, I lived in East Oakland during the height of this, and my brother Plex, who was in my first real rap group, Delinquent Monastery, Delmont Crew, and my brother Ajax, they're both born and raised in East Oakland, you feel me? So like that, we were living that lifestyle, and that's just that's what it was. And then around the time the battle rap thing popped off, that was like, we already, like, you know, as Delmont Crew, we were doing our thing super tough musically. We were in Herb magazine, which was like one of the biggest alternative hip hop and dance music publications in history, and they had this thing called the Next 100. We were like in their Next 100. That was like the same time like Diplo and Wiz Khalifa were in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, as like the next 100 artists to blow up. We did a whole industry showcase at Just Us, headlined our own industry showcase in Hollywood at the House of Blues for every single label. They're all like, we're like Universal trying to sign us, all these different labels. And then around that time, the battle rap shit started kind of going crazy for me, and we wound up, you know, Grind Time was birthed at that time, and I wound up linking up with them fools, and it got super like, so that's was a snapshot into what we were doing culturally at that time. So the first real glimpse people had of me or any of us was like the tail end of that hyphy shit. So people really got to see us in our element, and people, like, it was like really odd. I don't think people knew how to decipher it. Like, these fools are fucking weird. They dress crazy. Like, their jewelry's crazy. They have, you know, who's this white boy with gold teeth and pink sunglasses on? Like, there was no cultural reference that made sense. They didn't know how to like take me when people first saw me. They were like the Bay Area version of Lush, especially. They were like, who is this fool? Is he genuine? Is this really how he is? Or is this just an affectation? Like, people did not know how to take me. I was very, very polarizing. Like, it took a long time for me to get to where I am now, where people generally perceive me in a genuine and positive way. Because especially at that time, I'm all fucked up on hella drugs. People are like, what is up with this boy right here? But it made people hate me, but it made people love me too.
Yeah, that's big, man. I listened to part of the Double Dragon mixtape today.
Oh, what? My boy went back. He went bite.
Well, I mean, it just made... I was curious. I mean, it's just kind of what it is. I get curious, and I care a lot about the musical journeys a lot more like than the other stuff. I mean, I care a lot about grind time, and we gotta talk about that for sure. At least the starting point, because it's super nifty that you're involved in the inception of something like that. It just has to be documented a bit. But like the part that you like is, I was listening to it, and I kind of got fascinated by E40 sound for a minute, and I think the RBL posse is also a super fascinating group. So like in general, like like you can take like Bay Area music from almost any time in history and eyeball it, and it's like fucking weird that you can do that so eloquently, regardless of when it comes out, at least in the hip hop part, and it always sounds blessed. Like E40 can re-release the same album 100 times and you still want to listen to it, even though you know exactly kind of what it's going to be a little bit. But like at least to me, you probably get all these nuanced differences with updated slangs and all sorts of shit I don't understand. But to me, it's just like the sound of it, the overall vibe of it. Like it's just so amazing to listen to all the time.
It's funky, you know. That's the thing. Like the Bays always have the funk. I feel like every region. I've said this before in other contexts, but every single region where hip hop exists is a reflection of the other music that region was known for. So it's a reflection of that, and it's a reflection of the method of consumption of that music. Let me give you some examples, right? So let's talk about New York. New York, huge history with jazz music. What do you have? You had a bunch of music with jazz samples. It was throwing back jazzy. You feel me? Like Tribe Called Quest, Pete Rock, and CL Smooth. And even like soul. Yeah, and even like the more harder edged music, like you still hear nuances of jazz through it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like Black Moon, all that shit.
G-Rap, Kane, everybody had like some jazz tinge in there somewhere, thrown in there.
And people were listening to music on boom boxes, you feel me, on the corners. Not everybody has a car in New York, you feel me? But motherfuckers are walking around with the boom boxes. Boom boxes don't have as much capacity for bass, but the drums smack hella hard. So you have loud drums, jazz music. That's New York. West Coast, we had dance parties, roller rinks, you feel me, like Bay Area included, LA included, like dance parties, roller rinks, funk music. It's all about the funk. So what do you hear in our music? You hear funk. DJ Quick, you feel me, you hear the funk. Dr. Dre, you hear the funk. Gangster rap, G-Funk, you hear the funk. Bay Area mob music, funk in the trunk. That's it. Whereas music primarily listened to cars. Everybody's got fucking old schools mobbing around. So it's very bass heavy music. Boom. Okay. Let's take a look at the South. What's the prevailing musical influence of the South? Well, they have a huge marching band culture, which has always been there. You see, you feel me? Military marching bands. Like, so what does the music sound like? You hear all these hyper-paced drums, you know what I'm saying? Like soulful elements and hyper-paced drums, and which is like echoing the motherfucking snare and hi-hat rattles that you hear. And where do people to listen to music in the South? The motherfucking strip club. So it's hella bassy, and it has that tempo that bitches can dance to. Boom. Midwest. What's over in the Midwest? It's the country. You feel me? It's country music. It's like, it's bouncy. You know what I mean? Because the blues comes from there. Country comes from there. You hear that in the music. Twista, Nelly, Tech Nine. You feel me? Like all these examples. So these are all the music of the hip hop of specific regions are a reflection of their roots. Let's look at Canada for a second. Who was the first rapper we ever heard from Canada? Well, Maestro Fresh West and Snow. And what was Snow? influenced by Jamaican culture,
Yep.
because there's hella Jamaicans and Trinis and Islanders all through
Super.
Toronto, and then you still hear it in Drake's music to this day.
Wow,
A
facts.
lot of the Toronto rappers to this day have that influence. So like
kicking all the knowledge right now, bro. Kicking all the knowledge.
You just like
yeah,
blew
nah,
my mind.
You
like,
you said it,
like...
and immediately, as soon as you said it, immediately I'm thinking about New Orleans. I'm thinking about Memphis. I'm thinking about just all these places that, yeah, absolutely, like their regions. That's why their hip hop sounds the way that it sounds.
100%.
Because of the influence of what already exists there in that area.
The like New Orleans Creole flavor, New Orleans jazz, kind of offbeat. Like, you know what I'm saying? You hear the same sounds in Juvenile's old beats and Kingpin and all that shit that you would hear in New Orleans jazz. You feel me? Like Soulja Slim, all that shit. You hear that in their music. Fucking Memphis, like country rock music is same thing. You feel me? Like it's you hear in Kingpin, Skinny Pimps and 3 6 Mafia's music, you hear that like that rock element in it. You know what I mean? Man, that country element in it. It's crazy.
Yo, I never thought about it quite like that before. I don't think a lot of people where I'm from think about it quite like as you describe so much of that, because sometimes we're focused on places that have success and we focus a lot on what works in other places without maybe looking at our hometown. And I think why it matters is like the fans of your hometown are already fucking with all this shit, so splicing some of that and you're more attractive to your local audience.
100%. 100%. And it's gonna, like, if it resonates with the hood, there's a good chance it'll resonate in the next hood. And yeah, that's definitely how regional flavors get concocted. And, you know, to bring it back to your original question about the Hyphy movement, that's exactly how that happened. We were making music for the people around us that spoke the language, the people around us, and lived that lifestyle. And that's just like, it became something that to this day, like, has a prevailing influence on the game, but it resonates way harder. Like you talk about E40, I always liked E40's music, always liked his shit. When I moved to the Bay Area, he instantly made 100 times more sense. And to this day, it's like that with, like, I feel like I was saying to Flacko not too long ago, like, I wasn't crazy about a lot of the newer Brooklyn drill music. One night kicking it in Brooklyn recently, and it all made sense. And now I got fucking 22 G's and Dusty Locane in rotation. You feel me? Because it just suddenly I was like, oh, I get it.
Get it.
Because this is the environment it's supposed to be created
all
for.
Music like that is like that. Like when you experience it, that music in their city, in their town, it just hits so much more differently. Like, I remember being in New Orleans in the middle of like the Hot Boys hitting.
Oh yeah,
like
best.
and Back That Ass Up being on fire and being on a street team with like a promo van and like down there for like the Rose Bowl or some bowl, I forget what bowl it was, and like backing up traffic for like as far as the eye could see with our speakers open, blaring in the back doors. You know how those promos ends would be like a whole wall of fucking speakers. So like you could hear us for like down like 20 block radius type shit so loud, you know, and just bumping like Hot Boys, and like the party that ensued in the streets was just like it. You never like. That's why I have such a love affinity for Cash Money and their sound and Manny Fresh's sound, because like I'm just like I experienced it. So like once you experience something in the town that it's from, you're just like, nah, this hit different. Like you don't understand. You don't get it. Like you gotta be down there to get it.
But just to like add a layer to that, one of the things I keep when I do a review is I have this note file, and the one note I leave in it is music is created for the environment and how much it's performed live. And that's just transcended hip hop to all genres. Like I found out like certain eras of rock were just catered towards a bunch of kids on speeds in particular bars, so it like drove a particular sound to it. I got fascinated by the relationship of drugs and music and venues and shit, but like classical is designed for like mid-tiered concert halls with curved rooms, and it sounds like trash otherwise. So that's why new classical don't sound like old classical, because the venues of new classical aren't the venues of old classical. And like, yo, so like just like everything you're saying to me, it just merits all kinds of truth, because like,
well, and drugs adds another layer. 100%. And like the music reflects the drugs, like in the hyphy movement, the drugs were really hyper paced, and almost had like a ravey element. And guess what? We were all popping ecstasy pills at the time. So I think there's a definite correlation there. Like, just like a lot of the music a few years ago sounded really leaned out and zanned out because motherfuckers were doing a lot of that shit.
Yeah.
and it's like, yo, that's like, it's this is a good conversation. I just want you to know I'm fucking loving every second of this, Mr. Lush
Shit is
One.
fire.
In your perspective, dude, that was like, that's the kind of shit where like you can take that back to your local scene and be like, yo, let's rethink this shit a little bit, and start strategizing with your peoples and be like, what the fuck can we like calibrate here? What is popping? Like, I could not tell you, really could not tell you, outside of the hip hop world, what the fuck is popping in my city, except that the K Tronada got a dance album, and I'm like, wait, is
Oh, K Tronada is fire. Love K Tronada. Look, what I think that something that really blew the game open was when ASAP Rocky came out, and that's because this is a kid from Harlem who was obsessed with Dirty South chopped and screwed music. Had
Yes.
had a grill like he's from fucking Houston, pouring up
Yes.
lean. You feel me? And
Yes.
low key also influenced by like Bone Thugs and Harmony and all this other like hip shit from other regions, and that no one ever associated with New York, and kind of
Yes.
brought that. But while he did that, still had the most New York vibe ever. You
Yeah,
feel me? Like
I
on
remember
some
being blown
Harlem fashion
away.
shit.
I remember being blown away when I first saw Rocky's first, like the peso, because it was like seeing him in the video. Like, I was like, yo, bro, this sounds like Texas, but
Right.
what I'm seeing and how he's dressing is like
The most
Cali.
New York shit
It's
ever.
like, nah, it was no, the way he was dressing in that video was like very Cali to me.
Right. No,
like
true.
his outfit looked really, really Cali, you know.
For sure.
And then, but and he was riding in the basket of like the bike, which is like not a typical New York thing, you know what I mean? Which is something that I think I associate more with Cali for some
Absolutely.
weird reason, right? But then on top of that, but then I see his background, and it's like, but that's a bodega, but that's New York, like, and I'm just like, this it was the beginning of the mashing of all these different regions at the same time. Like, I think Kendrick kind of had a little bit of that too, like that sensibility where it was like sonically he sounded like kind of like Bone Thugs, you know, Midwest flow, but like with like an East Coast lyrical sensibility, but like clearly a West Coast cat with like what he's talking about and everything that he's talking on, you know, like
1,000%. 1,000%. You know what I mean? Like that to me is no, it's a good assessment. And I feel like when you start playing with those things, but still maintain your own identity, because he never, like, although he was influenced by all this other shit, he was still Harlem to the core. You know what I mean? And I feel like even using other regions as a fashion accessory is a very Harlem thing to do in and of itself. You know what I mean? Being so fashion forward like they are in Uptown. So like that's kind of like what I've always done, like with my New York influence, with my Houston influence, Bay Area influence, but it's still LA as fuck at the end of the day. And I think it's fun to play with those things, but there's just like how there's so many different ways to express your individuality and put on for your section. Wow, like, you know, like if I spent a week in Montreal, and I was there before, but if I did that, I'd for sure be able to make a record that personified that vibe very easily, and still have my own Cali identity in doing so.
Interesting. No, that's like, that's the kind of shit more people need to think about, especially like in a numbers focused era where branding is almost secondary to the performance of a CTR or whatever, right? Like, people don't see the more like artistic elements that go into this kind of branding, Like you're able to look at stuff and quantify it into what makes things dope, rather than there's this percentage of this, that's, and a lot of us aren't able to necessarily see it like that. So to hear you break it down with such eloquence and just how you pocket things into the almost like a deeper level of looking at the data of the world, it's so interesting.
Word, no, I appreciate you, and I feel like you got that in you as well. But
Yeah.
that's just like that. That's what I choose to. It's what I choose to emphasize. Like all I care about is, besides family. You know, I love my family. I love my fiance. I love my homies. But I love culture, art, pop culture. You know what I mean? Like music. That's all I care about. You know, all this other shit is whatever to me. And I use, like, I feel like a lot of the things that I'm educated in is strictly so I can have a frame of reference when discussing it in an artistic or creative context. Like, but I genuinely don't care about it otherwise. Like, you know, like I don't care about politics, but now I'm informed about it enough so I could absorb references that fucking Chuck D's making or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only reason why I even care about it.
I mean, I feel like in a lot of ways, the only reason I'm having this conversation with you is because I got curious about what rap lyrics meant once upon a time, and it just all kind of stems back to like a desire to understand what hip hop is. Like, this is all part of this bigger journey to know what it is. You know, like, because what is it?
Word.
It's a hard thing to answer, and there's a lot of people who disagree with a lot of things. A lot of people have a lot of opinions, but I know I read the Gospel of Hip Hop. I read all 836 pages of that fucking book. And it got me really thinking a little bit differently about a lot of things with regards to community elements and all of it. And then I started doing this, and it was like taking it up a notch. Like, you're talking to people who grew up in all these places, and you're like one of the first people we talked to that grew up in LA. So it's like even bridging more gaps now, because it's not like as New York, like you guys don't go so much as, you know what I'm saying. It's not the same thing. It's fuck, I forgot what it was, but you were saying something completely different, and you know, like,
well, they'd be like,
Hella.
they be,
There's a
yeah,
lot of hella.
no,
we
but
say
you
hella,
were,
like
you were saying one in
they
particular.
be y'all be
earlier.
saying facts. We say dead homies. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'd be like we pronounce our R's.
I think it
You
was
feel
like,
me?
feel
Y'all say
me.
like
There-
dead ass. We don't say dead ass. We
No, you
say
said it in between the other shit, and I might missed it. But it's like, you feel me or something like
you
that.
feel me. You feel me.
Like,
You feel
that's
me,
it.
yeah.
That's the equivalent of, you know what I mean. And we have A.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm like, that's
Right,
always
right.
A. Like, just there's EH question mark. It's always a question mark. But that's like our version of it, and I'm like, that's crazy to like notice these little linguistic differences, right? Because if you don't, because if I were to say, you know what I mean, down in your place, it would just be weird, is what I'm realizing, because you didn't say it one fucking time except for whenever Flacko was talking and you code switched, and I was like, that's fucking nifty as shit. Fuck. Yo, I love that shit. To me, linguistics is that's part of why I love hip hop, is how language is used. Like, I don't understand sports bars, so I give up on those real quick. But once you start understanding the slang and things, like, for me, it was the 5% language. Once I started learning about that, and then the Wu-Tang shit started making more sense, and a lot of, and I'm like, I actually have the RZA Wu-Tang manual, because he's just like, fuck it, people don't understand it. Here's a book. It'll give you a level 1. And I'm like, thank you for your book, my guy. And I read it, and it was fucking great, because it explained Wu-Tang shit to me. And then like it like, man, and then when you start like uncoding it, it's like this puzzle, and you start like looking at these different layers. So like, now I know what a stretch kid and a Bobito kid is. And so like, you start like, yo, what's the stretch and Bobito peoples of your area? Like, when you were growing up, what would it be?
Wake Up Show.
Who's that?
Yeah.
Sway and Tech.
Sway.
And Tech. I'm not gonna. I fuck with Sway and Tech, but I really fuck with Bobito and Stretch way more. But I fuck with Sway and Tech too. But yo, it's so funny. I wanted to tell Flacko actually. When I was the last time I was in New York, it made me so happy. I saw the funniest Black Israelites ever, and they were going off on all these people in Midtown. Made this fucking white girl cry. It was the best thing. I was dying full. I was like, oh man, I wish I had this on tape. I was like, yes, this New York is back. I see Black Israelites harassing out of towners. This is the energy we need in NYC, bro. I was fucking. They're like, they take that 5% dialect to a whole another level. They were saying like, and they were talking about like things are fucked up right now, and y'all don't even know. And there's like these white girls walking by, and one of them had a Tampa Bay Buccaneers thing, and there's something like with the like a cowboy hat on it, right on the logo or something. He's like, "It's you dark devil, evil, you evil devil cowboy!" Like he started spazzing, and me and my homies, me, Zoo, and Bobby started dying. We're like, "Yes, yes, love these people."
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah, now New York is definitely back. New York is definitely back.
The Black Israelites deserve as much real estate to harass white people as possible. Even if I catch a few strays, I'm not bad. It's fucking hilarious.
I feel that, but like, I understand it too. Like even what you said, I understood it because I went and did some Googles along the way, and then I just, cause you get curious. You know what it is? You see some shit like a bean pie reference, and you're like, the fuck is a bean pie reference mean? Like, why are they talking?
Fire, love bean pies.
And then you go look it up, and you learn about the history of how this was a way to sell fucking food, and is cleaning is part of the culture, and you're like, oh shit, like this shit all means something. And then if
Muslims run up on you, you're driving down Crenshaw, the Muslims run up on you trying to sell you the bean pie. And what's that newspaper? What's it called? Like the Final Call, I think is what
Final
it's called.
Call.
Yeah, Final Call. The Muslim newspaper. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, brother. I'd always cop the damn bean pies. That shit is fire.
I don't think I personally ever had a bean pie, but I'm curious. I'm not gonna lie. I want to try.
Oh yeah, you might be onto something bringing the bean pies up to Montreal, bro.
Yeah, I'm sure it's here. Honestly, I'm sure somebody from my city's gonna be like, "You fucking moron! You just gotta go over there." And I'm like, "It's possible."
No, they got them for sure. That seems like something they would have up there.
Like we got like
just called something else, however you say that shit in French.
That's probably what it is, actually. No, you bring up a real point. That happens a lot where, like, I realized that there's some shit I know my whole life with, like, like pamplemousse was an example. That's fucking grapefruit. I didn't realize that grapefruit and pamplemousse was the same thing until I was in my, like, fucking late 20s, and it clicked that these are the same fucking word. So that shit actually happens. Anyway, and then imagine it's not even grapefruit and somebody calls me out. Whatever, it is what it is. But that's dope. Do you speak other languages? Because you grew up in LA.
I speak Mexican, you feel me, like hood Spanish, aka Mexican, you feel me, very well. I can understand some French and Italian, but because just from all my time I spent out there in France, but and my grandmother speaking Italian to me, but not pretty much English and Spanish.
That's still fucking dope.
Say I'm like damn near semi-fluent in Spanish.
But yeah, no, that's dope. Stills. We got a question from the comments. Do you like Psycho Realm and Delinquent Habits?
Fuck yeah. First of all, Sig Jackin is the homie. Dude. Wow. Psycho Realm is crazy. That's that real cholo tag banger music for sure. Delinquent Habits was always next to us, Delinquent Monastery in the CD store. You feel me? They'd be like their one thing over. So and I used to bump Tres Delinquentes. That song was hard. You feel me? So yeah, but for sure, Psycho Realm I love.
No, it's dope.
Sig Jackin, one of my favorite rappers, actually.
Yeah, the homeboy Ismail got us to review Psycho Realm's first project, and I was like, yo, this is fucking lit. Like, there's tracks on that, like, like sometimes you hear a project, whatever, and then sometimes it's like, nah, that's one that you gotta go back to, and like, they're special with it. Like, it felt real big. But so how do you get to a point where like your music's popping off, and then you decide to pivot into grind time? And also, what was it like? Kind of, I guess, before that, being involved with the WRC stuff, because I was kind of watching your WRC battles before, and I realized this is what D-Rec was talking about, and I'm like, oh my fuck, and I started connecting dots. And then, first of all, I loved your post fucking battle shit. You were so like courteous enough to like actually remember your opponent's bars, and I'm like, nobody else was doing that but you. You were like verbatim spitting motherfuckers' bars, and that was so cool.
I was on Adderall. I remembered everything. I could tell you how many freckles were on your forehead that day. Like I was in future hyperspace, fool. It was crazy. But thank you. That's a nice way to put it. But nah, fool. WRCs were tight. We went in there to flex. I didn't realize that I wanted to kill everybody there. I didn't realize how good of friends I was going to become with so many of them dudes. Like I fucking pulled out brass knuckles on satire in the WRCs, but now he's one of my close homies. It's crazy. I love Sat, it's my brother, but I was pissed off because he said something he said. You feel me? But it's crazy. Like I didn't realize that these were going to become my brothers and shit. And I was, I'm from LA, but I was living in the Bay, and everything I was doing was like representing for the Bay. And coming back to LA, I was kind of like, fuck all y'all down there. Where was y'all at? Where your ass was at? You wasn't showing me no love. Why I gotta move all the way up here to get my rap shit jumping? They all love me up here. So fuck y'all. I'm battling in that I was in the neighborhood I grew up in. That was the West Side. That was West LA. That's literally like I could walk to the house I grew up in from where we had the WRCs in LA. And I was like, fuck all them, fuck LA. You feel me? Like I was just pushing the line, even though I've always been like, yeah, I'm from the Los. I'm from West Los, born and raised, but still at the time it was low key like, fuck y'all. But then those became some of my best friends.
Yeah, I got another question from the comments, if you will. Mr. Lindell Williams would love to know, what are your top three rappers? Like, who are your top three if you had to pick, like, I guess, artist-wise?
Like, ever?
Yeah,
Or right now?
It's ever. Your faves, all times.
Ever. So many. I don't know, I'm gonna say like Jay-Z, DJ Quick,
Nice.
and let's say Jay-Z, DJ Quick, and then like I don't know, like AZ. You
Okay,
feel me?
that's a cool list. Definitely,
Yeah.
Jay-Z's more. I mean, DJ Quick's dope. I know I've listened to the Rhythmalism album.
Rhythmalism, that shit go crazy.
That is a great album. Honestly, it was really like, you can do that with me
Quick as you a
sometimes.
gangster, no I'm not. Quick as you a gangster, no I'm not. Bang bang boogie.
That's a good time. So yeah, and then AZ's cool too, right? That's like an eclectic mix, in my opinion, but a dope mix.
AZ is so hardful. He would have been. I don't know why. I mean, I've heard different stories as to why, but it's great because Nas. I love Nas, but like AZ was that dude. You feel me? AZ really fucking rap, and he was really on some gangster shit. And I don't know, man. He really talked to me, bro. I love AZ's that Do or Die album and the Asiatic album and Pieces of a Man.
Asiatic was the one that did it for me. Like Asiatic was like, whoa,
Asiatic was
this
amazing.
dude's pen was like on another level. Like it was really like, what? Like, nah, I think he might be better than Nas, bro. Like
low key, you feel me?
Yeah, nah, I love AZ.
No, it's mad interesting because I know a lot of people who have said similar things. I don't have an opinion yet because for me it's like if I reviewed the album, I can talk about it because I've thought about it with a broader lens. If I haven't, my opinion was trash because it was back in the daytimes. So it's hard for me to know. And every time I heard AZ rap, it was tight. But until you can really go down the album route, that's when you can really get into the conversation for me is who can make a blessed album, which is where Lush One just spiked up high on my list. I'm like, not a lot of people can make an album like that, man. No, for real. But your project, I don't know about your other ones, but the one with your name, fuck, I'm blanking. I'm terrible at this. Hymes, fuck my life.
You good?
That shit is ridiculous, man. That shit is like alright. It's just the scratchings, the elements. It sounds modern. It sounds old. It sounds kind of timeless with it. But most importantly, it's an album of knowledge nuggets. Every track is educational. I'm like, motherfuckers like me need people like you to be laying shit like down like that, because how else are we going to learn some shit in this system? And that's what I loved about it. It was what I would call age-appropriate music.
Word, I'll take it. You know what I mean? I'll take it. I mean, like it was recorded during the worst and then subsequently best time of my life. So it was like right before I went to treatment. I'm in the depths of my addiction. My whole life is falling apart. I'm estranged from the whole entire battle rap subsection of hip hop that I helped kind of curate and create. And everything was just going bad for me. I'm on the heels of a divorce. Had just been under investigation by the LAPD for a bunch of bullshit. So all this shit had happened to me, and I'm just like withering away on drugs, getting addicted to new drugs I had never tried before, mixing in with old drugs. They're meeting like old friends and new friends. You feel me? They're all mingling in my system. And I'm just like slowly dying. And then I go to treatment when I'm almost finished with it. And I complete the album right after I got sober. So it's like, man, it was autobiographical. It's a cautionary tale. But really, at the end of the day, the summation of the project is, if I can make it out the mud, homie, so can you, period. And that's really what I was trying to convey. Because I went through all that and I'm still kicking, still ticking, still tipping.
It's beautiful though, cause a lot of people try to make it sound like you're too old to do shit, and I'm like, nah, Lush One just dropped a gem. It's a gem. So
Yes, no, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. Like this isn't the motherfucking NBA where when your knees don't work as good, you can't like ball out like that anymore, and you're gonna be slow. Like, what do you mean, bro? This is linguistic creative art. The more you live, the more you sharpen your skill set. As long as you keep your blade sharp, you finna get better. You're supposed to get better forever in music. What Miles Davis hadn't even reached his peak yet when he was my age. You feel me? Why should I have? Nah, fool. It's the opposite.
I love it, man. I really, really, really do. Yo, it's like
Big
encouraging,
facts.
cause like I'm 33, right, and I'm still grinding it out. I still got all the faith in the world. Shit's gonna go the way I want it to go. And sometimes people look at you a little funny. It just happens.
33 is young as fuck. I know that sounds crazy because when I was 33, I felt 85.
I feel
But like
85, yeah.
33 is young, fool. You're still in your early 30s, dog. You could damn near fuck off 4 years and still be like relatively young.
I don't know about that. It seems
No,
like
I
it's
don't
getting a
recommend
little
it,
harder to actually make those climbs.
Nobody's
as it used
saying to
be,
do it.
but, like...
It's just you could.
Nah, but for real, dog. Like when I look back, like 33 is young, fool. I'm on the precipice of 40. I'm 39 in this bitch.
That's fair. No, and
I still feel young.
I know, like, okay, so I feel this mix of old and young at once. I try very hard to stay young while feeling old. So I have to recognize my body's, like, limitations. Like, I can't go more than 3 days with no sleep. If I do that, guaranteed get sick. That didn't happen when I was
good.
young.
Sleep's important. That's why I cut back on all the. That's why I stopped taking drugs and shit. But like now, I'm getting my youth back because I was starting to look older and fucked up and shit. I have big ass bags under my eyes, looking like Skeletor. Now, like shit, I'm getting chunky again. Like I look like a spring chicken in this bitch.
I love it, man. I really do, man. You make it sound fun. You really do, and that's what people need to see, though. Like, people see this dismal age. I don't know if you've ever been in middle management. It gets weird when you look at people pushing 40 with broken dreams, not living their best life, living happiness and stuff. Not everyone, but, like, when you see these people, it's like, it's like being in a factory and looking at a guy who's been there for 30 years. You're like, that's not it, cuz I don't want to be that. That's it. I don't want to be that.
Watch the movie called Joe versus a Volcano. It's like a cheesy B movie from the late 80s, early 90s. Joe was a, lower middle class dude that lived a very mundane life, punching clocks in a factory, and this motherfucker jumped in a volcano. You feel me? Because you got to jump in the volcano, fool. You can't just do that shit forever. You feel me? And I'm not gonna say, because I don't give advice. I don't do advice. What I can do is speak on my own personal experience. I find advice in general to be very pretentious unless it's solicited. But even then, when people ask me for advice, I'll be like, this is what I did. This is what happened as a result. You take that because my circumstances is different. The Flacco's circumstances is different. Like there's no way we might have a frame of reference, but it's going to be completely different at the end of the day. So you could use what happened to me as a frame of reference for yourself, but that's still not necessarily me articulating it as advice.
But it's more like inspiration is how I look at this world. Like, this is why I really love doing this in particular, where we talk to somebody like you. Like, I was reading books of people that were successful. Now I've evolved that into reading books of people who are successful, to podcasts, to talking to people. Like, I went from, like, watching this show to being this show. Like, to me, that's blessed. And that's what, like Lush One, your life, like, is so, it's like, it's not really, like, it's more the behind the scenes shit that's the most interesting part of how you are able to be a relevant and interesting person that people are hitting me up to be like, don't fuck this up, right? Like, I have that happening, and I'm like, yo, I want people to say that shit about me one day. The fuck did Lush One do right? So I'm looking for it, and it's shit like Lush One remembered people's bars. That's consideration, dude. Other people didn't remember your bars, and you remember their, and it's no disrespect, but businesses do those little extra.
Oh, they
moves
remembered
like
them
that.
when they had nightmares when they went home.
But
When they
you,
went home and it
but you were
haunted their
just like
dreams. That's
objectively
when they
like,
remembered. No.
but it was more the objectivity. You were like, we had this bar that was good, and their bar was also good. That was a good bar, and it was just like, yo, businesses pay top dollar to learn how to do that today, and you're dropping it in the tailor end of a random rap battle, and probably a lot of people didn't maybe notice or care. But I don't know. That's what my day job's about, is that type of little subtle shit, right? And I'm like watching that, and I'm like, yo, that's why people like him. Because there's anybody else watching that after is not going to appreciate the fact that you took the time to listen to their bars the way that you appreciated me listening to your music. Even if they got beef with you after, that little element, it's going to stick with them. It's going to be a little seed or something.
No, and I think that's driven from a genuine love of the game and the passion that comes from being a kid that didn't even think he was going to be alive, and his only ambition for staying alive was being a part of this culture, which I was so enamored with. So the fact that I'm able to then, as a young adult, be participating in this in some capacity, going back and forth, like, yeah, I'm gonna cherish every moment of it. And even like the fact I'm honored to get to battle people and the top battle rappers I'm going against. I'm gonna remember everything they say because I'm a fan of this moment. I'm a fan of this lifestyle. I'm a fan of what's going on. So yeah, that shit.
Dude,
And I'm not afraid to be a fan, and I'm not afraid to think things are dope or tell people they're dope, because at the end of the day, me saying that you're dope doesn't compromise my masculinity or make me feel stressed out about who the fuck I am, because I know who I am.
I love that shit. I do have to go and talk though about the beginning of Grind Time. I think Flacko will be like, dude, you didn't let him say it or whatever after. So let's talk about how Grind Time started in your life and how you got involved in that.
So the WRC things happened. It was the World Rap Championships, all the biggest battle rappers at the time. Fight Club, which was the largest outlet for battle rap in a mainstream context, was canceled by MTV2. Smack DVDs were kind of, as things were heavily being bootlegged, and it was the BitTorrent era, so DVDs on the streets were becoming less popular at the time. So Smack DVDs were not coming out. Wasn't shit going on in battle rap besides that WRCs. Then after that, in 2008, they were supposed to do it. They didn't do it. Direct, who was competed in the Atlanta division, reached out to everybody that was in it via MySpace, which is how all the cool people communicated at the time.
All the cool people were on MySpace.
Love it.
All the cool people.
Period.
In the industry,
Period.
In the industry, in the underground, in the indie scene.
At that time, even high school.
At high school, absolutely. It was made for high school. But Direct hit me up. I heard his idea. I didn't really pay it too much mind. Then I saw the content that he was producing, the early battles. I was like, this is toy as fuck. This shit's hella weak. I don't want to be a part of this. Then there's another website in its infancy at that time called World Star Hip Hop, and they wound up posting one of the battles. And now let me put this in perspective for you. Right now, somebody can post a video of a shrimp running on a treadmill, and in 10 minutes it can accumulate 40,000 views. So 40,000 views ain't shit. But at that time, when YouTube was in its early stages, 40,000 views, that's a substantial number. You know what I mean? It's a lot of views. So due to that video, which was actually a pretty dope battle too, which I was impressed by. Johnny Storm versus Mosh Jelton was the name of the video. Got posted on World Star Hip Hop. It accumulated 40,000 views in one night, which I would say now is like the equivalent to like, I don't know, maybe 200,000 views in one night, or like 500,000 views, maybe even. It was like, it's like inflation. It was like
a big,
YouTube.
That was a big number back then. 2008.
Yeah, YouTube view inflation.
For just like direct putting on like a battle between two of his friends. Like,
yeah, to keep it in perspective, like I don't think any of the other battles had cracked 1,000 by then. Maybe, you know, like 1,100 in like 2 months type shit. Right. So it was
but
and I was
like,
you know what,
say,
this
like,
is dope.
The speed matters, because that, like, you might look at some shit relatively just on a stat point. If you look at something that has 50,000 views over 10 years, it's a bad number. 50,000 views overnight, it's a different number. So
absolutely, especially at that time. And you know, I was like, you know, I feel like I could do this as good, if not better, than these other cats. And my homies are really nice with it too. So no one else. I was like, you know, let me try to put something like this together in Cali. Nobody was really hearing me though. So I was like, I know what I got to do. I got to go out to Florida, do this shit myself. Let my homies see how this shit is done, and they're gonna all hop on board. And that's exactly what happened. I went out there, did a battle, made some noise, got love for it. Was on World Star. Was the first grind time video to hit like 100,000 or something like that. All my homies were like, damn, they happen to be some of the best battle rappers in the world. I was like, you know what? I could continue to battle, or I could help organize this thing, because we don't have anyone that can do it. And I'm not really that good at organizing shit. I'm just slightly less retarded than all my other homeboys as far as that goes. So let me just get it popping. So I did, started throwing events, and within a matter of months, we pretty much set the world on fire with that shit. And it became like we became like the epicenter of battle rap culture. We made Oakland, California, the epicenter for anybody that was around. You can't tell me that between 2008 and 2010, Oakland wasn't the most significant city in battle rap. And that was
that's what we were doing. Absolute fact. I could testify to that. Yeah. That's an absolute, like I said, I was jealous. And I say that like in a good way. Like, that's not like it's good to be able to recognize when you have like, I mean, it's not also like jealous in the real sense of like malicious intent and like, you know, and anger or hate or anything like that. But it's just like, it's like looking at what you guys were doing. And I'm like, yo, why don't we look like them, yo? Look at them. They look fucking clean, bro. They got fucking graphics over their heads. That shit appears like fucking like neon signs and shit. Are you fucking kidding me, bro? I want my name in for neon signs above my head, bro. Like, are you kidding me? Like, and their views are through the roof, and all these different styles are coming out, and all these different characters and people. Like, what? Like, nah, it was a different level. It was a different level.
Watch this. I'm changing cameras. Whew.
You got to meet one.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom.
Here we go.
I love it. This is good. This is always fun when we get the home tour type part of a situation like that.
Yeah, I need to smoke me a damn cigarette. Don't do it, but I'm gonna do it real quick while I'm talking to you. We're gonna keep it lit in the streets.
It's all right, man. We don't judge that. I've been smoking joints here, all sober, so you know you could all look the other way. It's all good. Everybody's all love here.
Hey, I used to snort meth off of toilet seats. You feel me? So this is a cigarette ain't shit.
Nah, it's not, man. It's whatever you do that makes you happy in life, the way I see it. But like, sincerely, it makes you happy. If you gotta smoke cigarettes, that's what you gotta do. Is how I see it. I'm not gonna judge that shit. Everybody.
Yeah. As the blood homies would say, I'm literally over here smoking a cigarette. So I'm literally not the last person that's gonna judge me.
As the blood homies say, I gotta go Boca Bigger at one time.
I understood what that was. I followed that. I'm hip enough for it, whatever. Anyway, but that's so cool that you're part of this, man. Cause like, yo, a lot of people that I know are involved in battle rap. Like right now, there's a battle rap tournament starting in Montreal tonight from the DMS League, and you can like correlate a lot of that back to efforts that you're involved in. A lot of people in my city basically owe you a lot of things, is what I understand, especially with your involvement with KOTD and then KOTD's involvement leading to DMS in Montreal. So with all of that, you're like...
They can pay me and their girlfriends. No, I'm just like... No, it's amazing. And to have kind of like to go back to what we were saying about the way you could learn so much about different regions through hip hop. You could learn so much. There's like battle rap has been like a beacon of culture and like putting people up on game in different parts of the world they would never be hip to, and the idiosyncrasies of like regional and provincial flavor. And battle rap has done that, and I love it, you know. And it's been I would have never gone to certain cities and certain countries if it wasn't for battle rap. So I'm forever in debt for that.
Nah, I mean it's just cool, like to be able to like give you that like honor for that because I mean there's a direct lineage between what you did with grind time and what's happening today in my city. You know, that's it's kind of crazy to think
Now
about it.
there's a direct lineage to
Like,
what they did together that is like overall this is what battle rap is now. Like all the, graphic shit, they were heavy on it in the West Coast. And like all this like style clashing type of thing, they were doing just a lot of things that were making the brand look better. Than it looked on its own. Like Direct was doing great things, but when like Lush got involved and like all these Cali battles started getting like on the channel, it was like, oh shit, like this looks different. Like this looks like a movie. Like this looks well produced.
And it looked fun, and it was like multicultural, and we made it like this is the place to be. If you don't know where this is going on, then like you need to get put up on game one time, because this is where it's at, and we just personified the energy very effortlessly. We were just having fun. We had no grand ambitions of taking over the game or nothing like that. It was, we gonna do something tight. We gonna blow people's wig back. I mean, that's all it was. But shouts to Montreal and all the dope battle rappers out there. My man Lo Pesci, my man Chuggo, my man Chrome, everybody in Montreal.
Pesci's from Montreal. I didn't know Pesci was from Montreal.
yeah,
Say word.
Absolutely.
he's Montreal for
Say
sure.
word.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. I know who Chrome is. We interact on Facebook. Actually, Chrome I know from back when I started rapping before he got into battle rap when he was still like really young and he was hitting up stages and shit. Anyway, but I had a question. Just let's say I don't know who were the original people to follow in that era for like battle rap. Who would be like some of the original guys that would have made the like seminal roster of that part of grind time that like were the people that you were promoting for or whatnot?
Thesaurus, Ilmac, Pass, Illusion Z, Reverse Live, FLO, Dirtbag Dan, Hollow to Dawn, Cortez, Philly Swain. There's a whole bunch of really, really dope cats at that time.
You included people not even from Cali. I respect it.
Yeah. Jay's Juice, Awkwards. There's a whole bunch of them. Dumbfounded, Satire, No Can Do.
No Can Do, man. I love No Can Do, bro. Like, yo, I mean, I love No Can Do, period. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like another level. Like, he's nice.
That's my brother from another big All City Jimmy, Port Vita.
For real.
Yeah, it's dope though. It's helpful for me because like it's just to see your names. So to like map it together is taking time as I piece it together. So hearing you say all these names after I'm gonna watch the video, I'm gonna like write it down, pay a little more attention, and make sure that I start following up. Like I now know I know who Thesaurus is and Illmatic and a few of these guys watching that series of WRC battles you were involved with. So it's a little helpful. And then I'm as I dig more into the culture, it's cool. Like it's just really cool.
We're gonna be having Awkwards as a guest next week, and he's also part of like the West Coast.
Big time.
So,
but yeah, we had a question from Ishmael on the Twitch. Is what is your most memorable battle, or like I guess the most one you?
I love Hollow. I encourage everybody to look up Hollow to Dawn versus Pass, because that was like the hottest dude in Oakland and the hottest dude in New York going at it, and it was it was electrifying.
That's fresh. Yeah, no, I got distracted because you said your bandwidth is low, but it's all right. We're good. You're popping in and out. We can hear you. Everything is fine. Um, so I mean, how did you end up getting involved then? I guess with like how? So, I guess what was it like being involved with Grind Time? Like just being there, like building that, like I mean, creating something that basically shaped everything to come in a sense.
It was fire because like the it was affecting the overall world of hip hop and just youth culture at that time more than anything I'd ever been a part of. So I kind of like, and being a driving force behind that, I just felt a great responsibility to my region, to my people, and just like everybody that was tuned into the culture. I was like, whoa, like this is a lot bigger than anything that I conceived, and it was exciting times.
So like, okay, so what would be your biggest like takeaway or like knowledge nugget of that era? Like the biggest piece of advice you learned from being involved in all of that that you would impart onto the world.
I think that you know, it's weird because it's kind of like the thing that made it successful was how genuine we all approached it, but us not having the business model to go with it and having that conceived beforehand wound up kind of biting us in the ass in the long run. It was like, it was like the midgets standing on the shoulders of giants. Like people kind of saw what we were doing, saw what we did right, saw what we did wrong, and were able to capitalize off of that before we really were.
Mm. So effectively, you do kind of need the business model to go alongside the good idea and the passion. Otherwise, something like that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like if we put too much thought into that, it might have taken away from um, so much of the appeal, which was like almost that pop punk rock unhinged. Anything could happen, like, do it yourself energy, that the whole grassroots vibe, which permeated through the whole essence of it.
Right. No, it makes a lot of sense. So it's I don't know. I just think it's interesting, right? Because you came in and you just ran with it and you created something that like changed the world, and then unfortunately, grind time ceases to be at a certain point. I have a general understanding of things just didn't work out, and it's just like I think like things like that happen in history, but you don't often get to talk to somebody who is directly involved with it and hear what they perceive to be like the more interesting takeaways from it. And I'm not interested in the drama and stuff, but it's like to consider the business, even if it doesn't dominate your forethought, but to think about it and to understand it is important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's how it went down.
So what did you end up doing after grind time?
So I wound up linking with the Canadian low key version of what we were doing. My homeboys, Organic and them, had a league called King of the Dot. Linked up with them and been rocking ever since 2012.
So it's basically you just kind of kept it going with King of the Dot and just kind of kept almost the same position and just more. So that's why it's in LA now, is because you.
Yeah. King of the Dot is in primarily is although it's still Canadian based and a Canadian conception. LA is like the home away from home.
Because like I know Lemino was telling me he was down there for it, and I've always wondered, like I thought it was Canadian. Why is it in LA all the time? That was definitely a thought that passed into my head at one point. Because yeah, but that makes sense. It's actually to me it's a cool sense of cultural influence that I'm in favor of. Because if we expand to you, that's like fuck. That never happens. Not in something like this. That's like you.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's mad blessed
they're on
as a
Twitch. They're
Canadian
on
and
Twitch
shit.
with it.
Like seeing that, it's like you kind of helped Canada in a huge way with that. Like
Yeah,
I don't know if you know how much that is to somebody like me who like is like thank God that day that Drake, Justin Bieber, and The Weeknd owned the charts for like that one day that Canada had top 3. It happened one time in hip hop like that. So it's like, yo, it's a big deal for me to be like, yo, so Lush One basically took what we had here and helped elevate it because yo, the second it's in LA, the world cares. Okay, like you can be in
Yeah, it
Toronto all you
definitely is.
want, but LA is not. They're not the same to the world. I fucks with both, but like I'm Canadian. I'm not in the global conversation like that.
the Canadian homies just had their business together. They had structure, organization, and it was a perfect fit for our, aura and authenticity that we brought to the game. And when we combined those two elements, it made us a very formidable force for years to come.
And so you were doing music the whole time, the battle rap thing. So I know grind time is one part of the battle raps, like one path of your life. But simultaneously, you're also making music this whole time. Because 2010, you say grind time times, but 2010, you also had songs coming out that you were referencing earlier in this interview. So I
Yeah.
was curious if you could also like roll it back and walk us a little bit down the musical path of your life.
So after, like my crew, Delmont crew in Oakland, we were really popping. Two of us wound up getting a deal for a label in France called Chinese Man. We started making a lot of music with them. We formed another group called the Rollin' Rockers, which was very successful overseas. We wound up subsequently getting signed to a label in LA in 2009, an independent label called Ever Ready Records. They put out our project. It was like low key. They didn't really have the marketing prowess to push the type of music we were doing. Right. So I wound up kind of breaking off and going solo at that point, and put out a very successful project with them called Gold Bricks in the Wall. I had put out one. Thank you. I put out one before that as well called Music for Dope Runs. And then that when that label folded in 2013, I was kind of like in limbo for a minute, but I was still recording and working with other artists and working as an A&R as well. And then wound up.
What is okay? A&R is one of those terms that people throw around the internet like they know what the fuck it means, and they don't always know what the fuck it means. What is an A&R coming from a guy who is an actual A&R?
A&R stands for artist and repertoire, and it's essentially like an artist liaison at a record label, ushering in and helping develop new talent and oversee their projects. I was an A&R for a label in Beverly Hills called Film On, and we wound up signing Chief Keef. So that was really exciting, and was involved in the Chicago drill music scene as an A&R around that time. It was really dope, and was doing songwriting for some pretty big artists as well. And then back in 2017, I got back into my own music and solo career again, and linked up with an artist collective in LA called I'd been in a couple other ones too, but the one that I linked up with at that point was called 667 Cult, and kind of like a amalgam of different styles and influences, and became like had like a little renaissance right there in 2017 and 18 of new stylistic development in between people that were involved in the musical aspect of the battle rap scene, as well as other underground scenes of LA. And we kind of all came together and put out a few projects with them. I'm still a part of 667 Cult, and in the end of last year, I wound up signing with Humag, which is a subsidiary of Sony Orchard, and that's where my most recent project, Hymes, came out, and pushing that line super tough. And I'm right now at the peak of my music career, sales-wise, notoriety-wise, and a creative peak as well. So it's been all the way up.
Honestly, it's great to talk to you, man. Like, your passion and everything is incredible. Like you know what makes you special is just every part of your life is optimized to like, fuck it, I'm in this moment, I'm gonna do this thing, and there's not really like a dull point. There isn't like a moment in your story where it's like, and I took off X amount of time, which you might think that's a strange thing for me to remark on, but I'm remarking on it because that's honestly like not what happens to most people. Most people don't somehow manage to do epic and cool sounding. How many people get fucking signed and are an A&R? You were an A&R to an era of music that is huge. Like that like, let's be real. Crazy. Chief Keef is one of those dudes that, like, looking back, helped impact music.
Absolutely, and he's a really good dude. I fuck with Sosa to this day, and that was a very interesting snapshot of an era in culture, which has had a prevailing influence. The times what I would view as my downtime musically was when things were popping for me in a battle rap context, or things were popping for me in the streets, and I was kind of like at a low point in life. But as far as like the movie of my life, that's the most exciting, because here I am, like, dodging cops, selling dope, really just like living like GTA San Andreas type shit. So it was like it's wild, man. My life is it's not even a movie; it's a damn anthology.
But those movies don't like. They only have certain endings that are fun, right? Either you go out in a bad way, or you end up kind of like Lush One today, where you're taking everything that you do with your life and you're being a shining example of how to still live to the fullest within the new parameters that define your existence. You don't have to be here, right? Like, you don't have to be doing this interview. Like, you don't have to be doing anything. You didn't have to write that album. You didn't have to do it. You could have stopped. I'm sure, like, you at any time.
No,
could...
I had to.
Therapy.
You feel me? I had to, and I have to do, like, it's not even like, you know what I mean? Like, not to make lofty comparisons, but Noah had to build the ark. You feel me?
Right.
The motherfucking Field of Dreams had to build the. If you build it, they will come. This is what I'm compelled to do. This is what the Spirit has compelled me to do. So I have no choice. I'm just on a journey right now. I'm not even steering the shit. My hands are off the wheel.
But I guarantee you, the next decade is gonna be the best part of that story. Yo, Jay-Z's most interesting times are absolutely today. I don't care what anyone says. That guy like does things where you just like, it takes over headlines and you're not going shake my head. You're going wow, and that's like, I don't know, man. You're on some fucking path for like the energy you have, where it's like the next decade I think is gonna be that part of your story.
God willing, sir. I
don't see why
that's
not.
what I'm.
Yo, if you look at everything in the whole world about growth and productivity and all this shit, so you're like the shining example of what the books describe.
I'll take it. And I all I can do is say that if anything, then it's my purpose to be a voice of the disenfranchised, and to let motherfuckers know that no matter how far down the scale you slip into your own depravity, own addiction, own feeling lost and hopeless, there is a way to circumvent that and come about the other side. So that's what I truly believe my purpose is. And if that equates in me having a comfortable, successful, and exciting life in the entrance and throughout my twilight years, I'm about it, Master P.
Nah, I don't know. You have a cool way of being. Like, you're still doing it, and you're still gonna keep doing it. Like you just said, it wasn't like you just had an album. You said earlier something on the lines of, "I'm pushing this shit heavy," and that's big. Nobody says I'm pushing this shit heavy, and you're doing all these interviews and shit. Like, to you, it's like, fuck, I'm gonna jump on anything. I'm gonna go do it. That's the vibe I got off of you, and that's the shit I think a lot of people, especially as you get older, are having trouble learning how to do again. So to see you doing it with like that youthful energy, man, it's inspiring to me to see that. It inspires me as a person to see it. Makes me want to keep
like
trying.
I told you, man, 33 is young. You got a lot ahead of you, boy.
But you still want to see somebody ahead of you doing it. You still want to like not look around and see dismal shit. You want to see some people being it, right? Like, you don't want to like feel like, man, nobody's doing it. You know, seeing you, it's like another way to look at it. It's like less lonely on that front. It's like, yo, Lush One's fucking already. How can I even complain one time? Look at Lush One. Look at Flacko. Like, I know Flacko is not 33, we'll say. I mean, but like,
yeah, no.
So to see that energy in that age, yo, especially when you're around miserable people at 40 and shit, right? Like, you're like, it's like, to see this, it's like, yo, fuck that. I'm gonna go keep doing this forever, because fuck it. I don't have to go play by their rules. Look at Lush One. That guy looks happy.
Period. And I wouldn't be happy doing anything else.
Yeah, big facts. I can't not do what I do. Like, I need to get the music out of me. I need to have that release. I need to have the therapy of making the music. I need to have the therapy of creating. Like, that's it. Like, that's it. Those are my babies. I sound like a cat lady.
Nah,
Word. No, that's it. That's it.
So we got a couple more questions from the chat if you're okay with that.
Bust it.
One is from Ishmael again saying, which young battle rapper do you think has the most potential?
My boy Saint, he's crazy. Saint from Inglewood. Shout out to him.
Big facts. Big facts.
Just
Shouts
won 50 grand.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And from Z, do you have any graffiti stories you want to share with us? Because, yo, the graffiti shit, we don't get a lot of that at all. And, yo, the most you can, anything you're willing to share about graffiti line is going to be treasured by people on my side.
I remember one time, it was super traumatic. We had fools from my crew had caught a spot. Done a tag in a blood neighborhood, right? And I was standing in front of like the little baby projects where we posted at, and seen this car pull up that I had never seen before, and we had just caught this spot, and we caught the spot. My homies did actually, and we saw it had gotten slashed by a gang. And because they were tagging where it was my younger homies, they were tagging where they weren't supposed to be, and I was like, okay, we got slashed by an actual hood by like gang members, and this full use of blood, pea stone blood, pulled up, and I didn't know who it was. I had never seen the car though. It was like an old Pontiac or some shit pulled up, and like I'm in front of the building, and I see the car. And then I see this fool in the driver's seat, right? And he looks at me. I'm standing out there by myself, blazing. And this fool says, I can see him. I can't hear him, but I can see him, like the words, mouthing the words. And see this fool. He said, fuck 5150. That's the name of our hood, right? 5150. And then I was like, oh shit. And then I see him grab a big ass, like I'm saying, this fool had a chopper so fucking big, it looked like it was from a video game. And this fool's pulling out the fucking, he's trying to get out of his driver's window to start busting at us, right? And it's just me standing there. This fool, the gun is so fucking big. This sounds like a battle rap bar. The gun is so big that the gun was so big that it saved my life. Because he's trying to pull this chopper out the window, but it got stuck on the window. It's so fucking big, it got stuck. And in that second of it being stuck, it gave me enough time to start sprinting, right? So I take off. I'm Carl Lewis all of a sudden. And then this fool starts dumping the chopper like at me. It's all doom, 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 doom. And like, yeah, like, you know, a lot of people have been shot at before, but being shot at by an automatic weapon, you really feel the gravity of like, these are like little missiles flying over my head, you feel me, going into the building right behind me. I wound up hitting the cut. The dude drove off, didn't smoke anybody, but that was definitely a gnarly graffiti story right there for sure.
Wow, not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know what else to say. Flacco's muted, but I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I was already in like battle rap when this shit was going on too. This is like 2011, some shit, 2013.
Holy smokes, yo. That's not even little. That's not even a long time ago, relatively speaking.
Not really, yeah.
I'm an adult.
Yeah, nah, y'all was living different out there. It was very much, you could feel it. You know what I mean? Máquina Muerte was like definitely like you know, like nobody thought that y'all were like fronting or like not living the shit y'all rap about. Y'all, you know, rest in peace, Cadillac Ron.
Yeah.
You know?
Rest in peace to my brother Caddy all day on Caddy. But look, I just had to make sure to tell the little homies we're not even into it with them folks like that. So stop catching spots in the damn Bloods hood over there. You feel me? Like, stick to our section and just know where you at when you're catching a piece, because it might not be you that wants getting busted at.
Yo, that's big
And I'm
too,
visible.
actually.
People in my city know where I'm from, so it's like they're gonna target me if some shit goes down with my homies because I'm easier to get at. You feel me? Like because I'm visible, people know where I'm at. I don't be hiding. I'm not in the cuts. I'm everywhere. So yeah.
Yo, that just took a twist I was not expecting, but also is very educational, and we're talking about these things, especially because man, the fact that I react like that is probably why it's worth talking about on the real. People don't know that things are really, really like that when they talk about things sometimes from where I mean, okay, of course there's shit that's whatever everywhere, but like, yo, where I'm at, I walk around wherever and it's all good in the hood for real. Like, you don't have to worry about anything like that.
Yeah,
So
nah,
just to
it's not
hear
like
like,
that. It's not
to
like
hear
that
like,
where Lush is
just
from. It's not like that where I'm from.
you know, like it's big for me.
Politics.
Mm-hmm.
Got to know where you at. Got to know how you're moving.
Mm-hmm.
Sense the energy. All kinds of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Got to mind your attire. All that shit.
All that.
I've
All
never
that.
once had to worry about that shit. In my opinion, I mean, I don't know if I ever offended because I didn't, but like I've never once worried about what clothes I wore when I went to a place.
Oh yeah, that's an actual thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and just how you carry yourself, you know, like
Yeah.
it could be like somebody, if you look like a gangbanger or you're even a specific race and you could be wearing the same hat as somebody like yourself, and like you won't have the same accent wearing it, so you're not going to attract that same energy. But it's subtle things people look for. Like I could tell what neighborhood in LA people are from by the certain words they use, by the way they move. I could tell, like, oh, he's from the Hoovers, he's from the Raymonds. I could just tell by looking at somebody what hood they're. It's weird, dude. It's like it's a creepy hood LA Sixth Sense type shit. You know what I mean?
I mean, I feel like a lot of cities have that like general premise where we can tell where people are from a little bit, but not with the gravity of the situation attached to it.
Yeah, it's like there's definitely, it's the same thing, but there's exactly well said. There's other connotations attached to it.
Like I often like think about how hostile corporate like America really is, but it's like people are really just fighting for mortgages and securing like bill payments. There's not like really any life threatening situations. There's like a situation, but nothing's life threatening, which to me is like it's like a separation of reality. It's like, you know, when you're not worried about dying, you're able to think a little different.
Mergers and acquisitions, murders and executions, you know. Hey.
It's the same kind of shit, but different. I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting stuff. I think about that kind of thing a lot. So hearing you describe it is it's helpful because it adds context to reality. So I'm always grateful for these kinds of moments. Yeah.
Yeah, fools thought I was gonna tell a graffiti story and it's gonna be like, oh, and then I fucking wrote on the side of a wall. Like, nah, it's way deeper than that, boy.
I mean,
I got stories like that too, mobbing the freeway, all that shit. But no, I think that's what people needed to hear.
I like that personally. You gotta understand. I really live for that shit. It doesn't have to be comfortable always. It's just gotta be real for me, and that makes me.
No, I don't. Yo, to be honest, I don't really tell that story too often. So only to people I know really well. It's my first time publicly telling that story. So exclusive, street sweeper.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, but like again, it's like for me, especially in the world I'm in, I have to be cognizant of all that shit, right? Like I don't necessarily know who I'm talking to in the future and what they've been through and the different kinds of realities and stuff. So in a sense, you're giving me this gift where it's like, yo, keep in mind when you ask these questions, when you delve into these people's lives, these are the things you're actually delving into sometimes. I never once thought that graffiti could be correlated with violence until today. I didn't even think about it. Not ever. Because nobody talks about graffiti shit.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe nobody talks about graffiti shit because it was so linked to violence. Like, you know, like I never would have made these connections because, again, nobody talks about it. It's hard to find.
And that's why I don't call myself, I won't be like, oh, I was a graffiti writer. I'll say I was a tag banger. Because it's a different, you know what I mean? It's a specific type of graffiti writer, and it's linked to gang culture because of where I grew up at.
Mm. Yeah, all that's helpful for the rest of the world to hear, though, and I think it's important.
In fact, to be honest, the funny thing is, like in LA, like that word, which I've embraced and put on blast in music and shit, that's like an insult. When people saying that, like, oh, you're just a tag banger, that's like gangsters saying, like, oh, you're not like a real gangster, you're just a tag banger. You know what I mean? But that's such like a common thing for the youth of LA to be, particularly from my generation, that I embrace that term and wear it like a badge of honor, whereas other people will look down upon it. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny.
No, I really appreciate it stills. So yeah, honestly, I'm just grateful you came through and told us all this stuff in general. I feel like this is that good point to start like wrapping up a little bit. I appreciate you
Yeah,
coming
no,
through.
it was a
And
fantastic,
it was like,
fantastic interview,
yo, I
yo.
mean,
We're gonna definitely have to pick up to do part 2 because like there's a lot more story left to tell.
yeah,
Oh
man.
yeah,
You
it's
know,
crazy because we
But
could have
like,
gone so many directions.
but like, I think it's
mm-hmm,
most important to talk about you at the beginning because you're the focus and you're the
mm-hmm.
interesting one. You're the one who made amazing things happen. So we can talk about amazing things later time, and you were a part of a lot of history that's probably worth delving more into. But I'm sincerely more interested in the people who make the art and shit. I wanted to know about the man who made that album. That was what motivated me in this interview more than like anything else, and that was the truth of it. I mean, yes, grind time, all that stuff's really cool, and it really is really cool. I'm not trying to diminish it at all, but like, yo, you just wrote this great album. It came out a month ago. That's a month ago. That's like modern fucking 2021 fresh shit. That's beautiful. You know, like,
No, I appreciate you, and I'm glad we talked about this. I'd much prefer this conversation than just delving into. I've done thousands of interviews on battle rap, and I'm down to discuss it. But like, there's so much more to me as a human being, and not only that, but my contributions to the culture far supersede my involvement in battle rap. And
Big facts.
A lot of that can be lost in translation. I know Flacko can relate to that as well because it's the same for him. So.
but it's usually
That's why I definitely fuck with Holden too. You know what I mean? Like when I did the interview with him, like I said, like I was like, damn, yo, why haven't I never been asked these questions before? Why haven't I had the opportunity to sit down with someone and like just talk about like what I was listening to growing up, what it was that I was like, what all was it that led to everything else, not just like when did you fall in love with hip hop, or like, when like typical questions that we get asked from like, in the battle rap community, that's just like, honestly, it's all about battle rap, it's all about, this and that, and it's just like, yo, fam, I want to talk about other things. Like I love battle rap, I love what it afforded me, but like more than that, like I love, this whole culture. Let's talk about that.
That part.
Like, I feel like as I listen to all of these battle rap interviews, because I try to like go through the interviews and stuff, but it's often like cool to hear about your like super big accolades and some big moments. Like, people are willing to jump at the shit that feels like it's clickbait moments. I'm like, that's all cool and stuff, but when you watch 5 or 6 interviews in a row, you're kind of like, I don't watch them all, the 2 hour, 3 hour ones, but the shorter ones especially, the shorter ones, these guys like all ask the same shit, and I'm like, man, that's gotta be boring. That's gotta not to say always boring, but like,
no, like I'd rather talk about fucking throwing up on Kate Hudson's shoes or getting shot at by Bloods. You feel me? Like,
yeah,
way more interesting.
But like, that's it. But I also want to talk about the fact that you're a successful entrepreneur who's been able to do a whole bunch of great moves, because that's what people can learn from. Truth, like, yo, it's not just like you were like one thing. Like, you helped impact Canadian culture, like in a sense. Like, these are things that are like, to me, what make you. That's why Canadians is jumping at me, going, "The guy's a legend."
I love Canada, always will, and it's an honor. And look, dude, you are carving your niche as an incredible um student and purveyor of the culture yourself. And I love what you're doing. And it's so genuine to you. No caricature. You're just yourself. And the conversation was like butter. You know what I mean? Like, I fucks with it 100%. And I'm always down to. And this is going to be online for me to watch, right? I can watch
this. Yeah.
Right? It's going to be immediately available on Twitch. It'll be on the EO Dub fucking YouTube, like, also
channel.
On their
shit. It's on the EO Dub.
We're going to make clips out of this in a few days, and I don't know.
It'll be on YouTube.
Within a week. you know, you know, and then all that, yeah, and then we'll clean up one for the like what we call the final one after in a couple weeks because we're a little behind, but like catching up. The clips is gonna be out fast though. We caught up on clips, so probably within a week you should have some of those snippets.
Well, fire. And this has been an incredible, man. We went motherfucking Trace Auras, fool. Fucking 3 hours in this biatch. This shit was dope. You know what I'm saying? You know, Flacko, you're my brother, Por Vida. Love you, man. I seen Dama pop up for a second. You feel me?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. But which, by the way, like kind of like made it a like even more of a fact that like Viva la Mesa. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
You know, big shouts to the fam. Like, yes.
Period. Point blank. You feel me? La Mesa. Like that's how we come in. That's family Por Vida right there. Y'all are man, this is incredible. Whatever I can do for y'all in the future, thank you, and thank you for your support and for this opportunity to teach the world a little bit more about me that they may or may not know already. So.
Honestly, I mean, to me, it's more like the opposite. I should be thanking you. Like, I'm not really at the place where I'm like, you know, gotta, like, I mean, it's starting, sure. But to be able to be like, yo, Lush One's coming through. You have no idea. I mean, you might, but you have no idea at least how meaningful that sentence is to people. Like, it's kind of like a sincere way of getting clout in my city. Because they're not.
Let's go.
They're looking at it like, how is Holden pulling these fucking names? To which I'm like, Flacko, Dutch, Flacko. You guys know him as Dutch, Flacko.
Pay no
Dutch,
attention
Flacko,
to the
Dutch,
man
Flacko, Dutch. That's basically all I'm saying because it's the truth of it. I'm like, listen, my life is going in one way. I literally do this thing with Flacko in like, what, October? And then November we do the interview. The review comes around. Then October we do the interview. In November it's like I just turned 33. I thought 33 is good. I'm into numbers, so threes are cool. So double it up on the 3. I felt it would be a good year. I don't know.
Your Larry Bird year, fool.
And then all of a sudden Flacco is just like, let's do this shit. And then I don't know. I interviewed him, a couple people in Montreal at the same week, and it just. Now it's like a regular, man. I'm talking to people 3 times a week in my life. I got a cipher we started, this, that, the next thing, and it's like, wow. You know, like, and so just you being here is pretty fucking dope. I really appreciate that.
It's all love. I appreciate y'all. Shouts to everybody. Fives up. And I'm going to catch y'all soon, man.
Yeah, I appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Bro. Talk to you soon. I'll see you sooner.
Have yourself a great day and take care.
Cool. Be smooth.